Chapter 489. Although Bloodblade had high standards when choosing disciples, he was quite capricious in accepting them. But he had indeed been accepting disciples. For example, the Myriad Flower Feast was his method of selecting disciples from the younger generation. The Myriad Flower Feast also gave many of the younger generation a chance to shine, because Bloodblade was very clear that although he stood at the peak, he was still on the same level as the Temporal Island Lord, Myriad God Palace Head, and many others. He was strong in direct combat, but the Temporal Island Lord was the strongest in terms of space-time. No one could stop him. Thus, those who stood at the peak all had their own powerful methods. At this time, it was more important to have a good helper. He had spent a lot of effort on his disciples, Monarch Green and Monarch Puzon. The relationship between master and disciple was a very important bond. For example, although the Bamboo Mountain Prefecture Master was one of the three ancestors, if the Bamboo Mountain Prefecture Master were to stand at the peak in the future, he might not necessarily have a close relationship with the God Emperor. The stronger one was, the more unwilling they would be to submit. They would rely more on their emotions to influence others. Thus, Bloodblade had accepted many batches of disciples over the years, but most of them were accepted when they were in the mood. For instance, if their hearts were touched, even if their talent was lacking, God Emperor would still bestow them an honorary disciple. If they felt that they were not bad and could be groomed, he would accept them as an inner disciple. But in the process of grooming, he would gradually be disappointed because most of them could not even become stage 4 world deities. The number of disciples that could truly catch his eye were too few. And now, the Bloodshed God Emperor was pleasantly surprised to discover the appearance of an extremely talented disciple. What stage 2? Bloodblade, what are you talking about? The black bird on Bloodblade's shoulder asked in astonishment. Dongbua Shui Ying's true deity heart has already broken through. After his inner world evolves, he will become a stage 2 world deity. Bloodblade smiled. What stage 2? Wasn't Dongbua unable to break through and grasp a grade 1 deity heart? How did he become a stage 2 world deity all of a sudden? The black bird was startled. Soon after, it began extending its senses and discovered Shui Ying in the middle of the mountain range. It could not help but exclaim, "It really is true. His true deity heart has already broken through, and he is only cultivated for 5,600 years. This cultivation speed is too terrifying. Let me think about it." The blackbird bounced on Bloodblade's shoulder. In the history of the deity world and abyss, the fastest person to become a stage 1 world deity was Monarch Green, right? He took only 300 years to become a stage 1 world deity. The fastest person to become a stage 2 world deity was a crazy brat called Monarch Extermination, who reached stage 2 in 2,900 years. Unfortunately, he was too crazy, and his murderous nature was too heavy. He died too early and did not become a powerful existence. The earliest person to reach the 3rd firmament was Manor Lord Feishua, who spent 53,000 years. The earliest person to reach the 4th layer was the Temporal Island Lord, who only took a little over 180,000 years. Other than Zhu Mie, who died early, Monarch Green, Manor Lord Feishua, and Temporal Island Lord are all very powerful. The blackbird said. Bloodblade nodded. In terms of cultivation speed, he was slightly slower, but he was still standing in an extremely high position. This was also the reason why he was willing to give many disciples a chance. Let me take a closer look at his cultivation experience. Bloodblade gazed into the distance. The majestic power began to pass through the countless spatial obstructions. It even forcefully passed through the obstruction of the material world. According to the public information, only the temporal temple could break through the material world and easily reverse the flow of time. Even powerful existences could not do it. But in reality, breaking through the obstruction of the material world was extremely difficult. Most powerful existences could not reverse the flow of time within the material world. But those who stood at the very peak, such as Bloodblade and the Myriad God Palace Head, could still do it if they personally acted. Only the Temporal Island Lord was the most powerful. He did not even need to act personally. Just the treasure he refined, the temporal temple, was enough to do it. Hua, a formless power descended upon the world of the Xia people. The white-robed Dongbua Shui Ying was currently within Crimson Rock Mountain. He was seated cross-legged within his cultivation room. His inner world was currently undergoing a transformation. Hong Long Long, the vast inner world, which originally spanned over 100 million kilometers, was currently rumbling and expanding. The land was extending in all directions, and the seawater was surging. Large amounts of energy were being absorbed and transformed. The land was originally devoid of air, and the trees in the forest did not grow or wither. But now, after fusing with the chaos whole law, the trees and plants began to grow. Countless cells within them were constantly being destroyed, and new cells were born. The trees and plants continued to grow, and when they grew to their limits, they gradually began to wither. After that, they would break out of the soil and grow once more. The entire inner world was constantly being destroyed and reborn. This cycle of life also produced gases and other substances. Air began to circulate. Amen. Dongbua Shui Ying raised his head. He could feel a formless power seeping in. Master, Dongbua Shui Ying immediately recognized that this was the aura of his master, Bloodblade. Master is reversing the flow of time to investigate what happened in the past. As a territory lord of a material world, he naturally discovered what his master was doing. The Bloodblade's descending power was not considered strong. If Dongbua Shui Ying was willing, he could even forcefully repel this power. But knowing that it was his master, Bloodblade, he naturally did not dare to do so. This brat, he even accelerated time by 600 years? In front of the Cosmos Furnace, Bloodblade lightly nodded. Counting it like this, he became a Stage 1 world deity in 900 years and a Stage 2 world deity in 5,000 years. Even though he didn't break the record, he is still one of the strongest grade 1 true meaning transcendence. The blackbird on God Emperor's shoulder happily said, Monarch Green was extremely dazzling back then. He became a Stage 1 world deity in 300 years and a Stage 2 world deity in 3,900 years. Back then, Your Majesty, you spent quite a bit of effort and even fought with the myriad God Palace head before finally accepting Monarch Green as your disciple. Monarch Green was truly too dazzling back then. He was a transcendent the moment he was born, and his talent was outstanding. When he was a child, he grasped the embryonic form of a grade 1 true meaning. Soon after, he grasped it and became a world deity in 300 years. One had to know that before this, the fastest person to become a Stage 1 world deity had taken 600 years, and that was achieved by the Temporal Island Lord. Yet, Monarch Green had done it in just 300 years. Even those peak existences like Bloodblade were alarmed. They were all fighting to accept him as their disciple. The Temporal Island Lord had compromised. As for the myriad God Palace head, he and Bloodblade had fought over this matter. In the end, it was Bloodblade who was more tyrannical and tyrannical. Monarch Green had become the disciple of Bloodblade. Bloodblade naturally put in all his effort to groom him. Monarch Green's current combat power was unfathomable. Congratulations, Master. Congratulations. The blackbird hurriedly shouted. You've accepted such a good disciple so easily. It's too late for the myriad God Palace head and the Temporal Island Lord to snatch him away. Ha! Bloodblade laughed. It's still too early. Back then, that brat extermination had also caused a commotion in the deity world and Dark Abyss. The two rulers of the Dark Abyss had personally acted to snatch him away, but his murderous nature was too heavy and he was too arrogant. In the end, he lost his life. Dombua's cultivation speed is slightly slower than Monarch Green and Extermination's. However, what I like the most is still Dombua's temperament. He's very emotional, yet neither arrogant nor rash. After going back in time, Bloodblade had long since understood everything. He had once taken Crimson Dust as his master. He was probably worried that Patriarch Blackfiend would kill him. Thus, he had always concealed this information. Even in front of me, he didn't reveal any information at all, even though he was ridiculed by his fellow disciples because of this. He doesn't place his hopes on others. He has enough patience. Bloodblade was very satisfied. He liked those who were patient the most. That was because he was extremely patient. Step by step, he rose to where he was today. Crimson Stone Courtyard. Gongfeng was drinking wine by herself, her cold eyes staring into the distance. She had a cold nature and hated weaklings the most. However, she was very obedient when dealing with experts. This was especially true when dealing with the God Emperor. Gongfeng was incomparably obedient and loyal. The God Emperor used her very smoothly. Go tell Donghua to come here. The God Emperor's voice transmitted into her mind. Gongfeng opened her eyes and said respectfully, "Yes, master." She then stood up and walked out of the cave, releasing her domain to scan the entire Crimson Stone Courtyard. In her heart, however, she was puzzled. Why would Master look for Donghua? Logically speaking, Master should be quite disappointed in him. Could it be that Donghua broke through? Or does Master really like Donghua and wants to give him a few pointers? Teacher should like Dongbo quite a bit, for him to be given 2 command tokens on his first try. Gongfeng had many guesses. However, she still immediately went to look for Donghua Shuang. Why isn't he here? Gongfeng walked along the corridor, looking left and right. She had already scanned the area with her domain, but Donghua Shuang wasn't in the Crimson Stone Courtyard. At this moment, 4 people walked in from the back door of the Crimson Stone Courtyard. They were Donghua Shuang, Jing Xiao, the Crimson Flame Emperor, and the Dragon Mountain Emperor. The 4 of them walked in together. He finally appeared. Gongfeng frowned. With a single glance, she could tell that Donghua Shuang was still a deity. He had yet to become a world deity. He still hasn't broken through? Gongfeng sneered in her heart. Junior apprentice brother Donghua. Gongfeng shouted coldly. Donghua Shuang looked at her and instructed, "Jing Xiao, you guys go back first." He then walked towards Gongfeng. He had just made a breakthrough in his deity heart, but the evolution of his inner world required a large amount of God crystals. It was impossible for him to foolishly carry out the evolution of his inner world in the middle of the forest. Initially, he was prepared to return to his cave dwelling and cultivate in his cultivation room, allowing his inner world to evolve and cultivate world deity energy. Without world deity energy, he couldn't be considered a world deity. Senior apprentice sister Gongfeng. Donghua Shuang walked over. "Why are you running around instead of cultivating?" Gongfeng's eyes were filled with disgust. She said coldly, "Master has ordered you to go over. Hurry up and follow me." Finishing her sentence, Gongfeng turned and walked ahead. Donghua Shuang shook his head and followed behind. Thinking back to the power of his master's bloodblade in the Xia people's world, he faintly understood why his master had summoned him. Chapter 490. A new chapter begins. Today is the first chapter. Senior apprentice Sister Gongfeng walked in front. She was a stage 3 world deity after all. Even without turning around, she could still see everything that happened behind her. Donghua Shuang shook his head and smiled, causing Gongfeng to feel angry. "I just gave you a few instructions, and you still shook your head?" Senior apprentice Sister Gongfeng turned to look at Donghua Shuang. "Junior apprentice brother Donghua, are you provoking me?" Donghua Shuang replied coldly, "Master has summoned me. If senior apprentice sister has any dissatisfaction, we can settle it privately after meeting with master." "Good, very good." Senior apprentice Sister Gongfeng suppressed her anger. She did not dare delay the meeting with His Majesty God Emperor. However, Gongfeng was indeed very angry. In the entire Crimson Stone Courtyard, because she had always been obedient, Senior Apprentice Sister Gongfeng was the one in charge. Thus, all the honorary disciples and inner disciples had to give her face. From her point of view, this god realm Donghua Shuang actually dared to disrespect her. She remembered this in her heart. "You dare bare your teeth in front of me?" Humph. Gongfeng led the way, while Donghua Shuang followed closely behind. Soon, they arrived at a quiet and beautiful garden. The crimson-robed Bloodblade was standing with his hands behind his back, silently looking at the lake beside him. "Master," Senior apprentice, Sister Gongfeng, was extremely obedient. She said respectfully, "I've brought junior apprentice Brother Donghua." Master. Donghua Shuang also bowed respectfully. Only then did the crimson-robed Bloodblade turn around. From the void, a blackbird suddenly flew out. It stood on Bloodblade's shoulder and shouted happily, "Donghua brat, not bad. You've hidden yourself quite well." Senior apprentice Sister Gongfeng stood at the side, feeling somewhat puzzled. Hidden himself quite well? What did that mean? Master is wise. Donghua Shuang said respectfully, "Because of the threat of a powerful enemy, I've always been cautious." Bloodblade nodded and smiled. Not bad. His words caused Senior Gongfeng, who was standing beside him, to be shocked. What? Master actually smiled? How is this possible? She had served God Emperor for many years, so she knew very well how cold and aloof His Majesty God Emperor was. When he faced his disciples, he was usually expressionless. He rarely showed anger, let alone a smile. Even during the 10,000 flower feast, when facing so many powerful existences, Bloodblade would only occasionally smile when facing those with similar strength. He treated ordinary almighties coldly. Just like the time when Donghua Ying became his disciple for the first time. Even though he was given 2 tokens, the Bloodblade was still very cold towards him. He quickly dismissed Donghua Ying without saying much. But this time, the moment he opened his mouth, he actually smiled. What's going on? What happened? Donghua Ying has hidden himself quite well. Was he hiding? Senior Gongfeng had some vague conjectures. But the moment she thought about how Donghua Shuang had only cultivated for 5,000 years, she overthrew all her conjectures. You grasped a grade 1 deity heart after cultivating for 900 years. Bloodblade nodded lightly. Your talent is outstanding, yet you were able to endure until now, only revealing it after breaking through to stage 2 world deity. Even though you are young, your patience is not bad. This is a good thing. You might be able to cultivate by leaps and bounds now, but in the future, when your realm reaches a higher level and your cultivation path becomes more bumpy, when you meet with all sorts of troubles and setbacks, you will need patience. Yes, Donghua Shuang said respectfully. You are also very cautious. Very good. On the path of cultivation, Master can't help you much. In the end, you still have to rely on yourself. Bloodblade was very satisfied with this disciple of his. Patience and cautiousness. These were the 2 strengths that Bloodblade was most famous for, and they were also the reason why he was so terrifying. Perhaps it was because he was proficient in assassination when he was young, or because he was very cautious and patient even when he was weak. Thus, his path of growth was steady and steady. Currently, in the deity world and Dark Abyss, one could say that Bloodblade had the greatest influence. His Bloodshed Tavern could be found everywhere in the deity world, Dark Abyss, and the material world. Even the most ruthless Abyss ruler of the Dark Abyss was willing to befriend him. Thus, Bloodblade was naturally very satisfied when he saw Donghua Ying's cautiousness and patience. Have you heard of monarch extermination? Bloodblade asked. I've heard of him, Donghua Ying replied. He became a stage 2 world deity in just 2,900 years, and his cultivation speed was far above yours. Unfortunately, he was too crazy, lacking caution and patience, and in the end, he lost his life. Bloodblade said, Take this as a warning. Yes, Donghua Ying said hurriedly. By the side, senior disciple Sister Gongfeng listened in a daze. Monarch extermination? Take this as a warning? This was practically comparing Donghua Ying to monarch extermination. Becoming a stage 1 world deity in just 900 years? Only revealing it after becoming a stage 2 world deity? Cautiousness? Patience? This. Senior disciple Sister Gongfeng had never heard Bloodblade so attentively give pointers. Usually, when the God Emperor gave pointers to his disciples, he would just point his finger at them and tell them to scram. Donghua, he's a stage 2 world deity. Even though senior disciple Sister Gongfeng was unwilling to believe it, the conversation between them was very clear. It was impossible for the mighty god Emperor to lie. How long has he been cultivating? Even a grade 1 true meaning transcendent would usually become a world deity within 3,000 years, and only become a stage 2 world deity after around 100,000 years. No, this Dongbua Shuiying is a grade 1 true meaning transcendent. Furthermore, he's extremely terrifying even amongst grade 1 true meaning transcendents. She had just heard that Dongbua Shuiying had grasped hold of a grade 1 deity heart in just 900 years. In the future, you shall be my personal disciple, Bloodblade casually said. Yes, master. Dongbua Shuiying was somewhat excited. Even though he had already guessed it, as the master of Crimson Rock Mountain, he was very clear about the significance of his cultivation speed. However, it was truly too rare for the God Emperor to accept a personal disciple. In this generation, other than Monarch Guzong and Monarch Green, his master did not have any personal disciples. He was the only personal disciple of a world deity. Greetings, senior disciple. A voice came from his side. Dongbua Shuiying glanced over. Senior disciple's sister Gongfeng was currently squeezing out a smile, appearing extremely respectful. The rules of the sect were very strict. Personal disciples, inner disciples, honorary disciples. There was a world of difference between them. The difference in status was also huge. Gongfeng, you can withdraw first, Bloodblade ordered. Yes. Gongfeng obediently withdrew. After leaving the courtyard, Gongfeng's heart was filled with unease. How could this be? How could Dongbua Shuiying be so strong? How could this happen? As a personal disciple, Dongbua Shuiying's status in Crimson Stone Courtyard was second only to His Majesty. However, it was impossible for him to have the power to kill an inner disciple or honorary disciple. However, he had the power to punish them, and could easily force Gongfeng out of Crimson Stone Courtyard. One must know, Gongfeng was able to listen to God Emperor's orders, and was even in charge of managing Crimson Stone Courtyard. Her authority was still very great. Her status was much higher than that of Stage 3 World Deity's personal guard. Her clan had prospered because of her. If she were to offend a personal disciple and be chased out of Crimson Stone Courtyard, the people she had offended in the past and the powers her clan had offended would definitely take the opportunity to trample on her. What should I do? I have to think of a way to redeem myself. Gongfeng was extremely anxious. Dongbua Shuiying respectfully stood in front of his master. Bloodblade waited for Gongfeng to leave before speaking. As my personal disciple, I will not be biased towards anyone. You will also have the chance to obtain an absolute art. Dongbua Shuiying's eyes lit up. Absolute art? This absolute art is extremely young and unyielding, and its sharpness is unparalleled. It is comparable to Monarch Green's absolute art, Mountain World. Bloodblade said. Dongbua Shuiying was inwardly delighted. An absolute art on the same level as Mountain World? Don't be too happy too early. The absolute art is imparted, but what you can achieve in the end is still up to you. I have accepted a few personal disciples over the years, but in the end, only Monarch Green and Gutsong became powerful experts. Bloodblade said, although Gutsong painstakingly cultivated the absolute art, the one I imparted to him was not inferior to Monarch Green's. However, his strength was far inferior to Monarch Green's. Dongbua Shuiying nodded. This disciple understands. Monarch Green, I imparted an absolute art to him, and he discovered another absolute art in the library. He grasped 2 absolute arts, but in the end his highest achievement was only the Mountain World. Bloodblade said, although absolute arts are powerful, not everyone can master them, and not everyone can master them. Of course, the absolute art I imparted to you should be the most suitable one for you. The secret arts you obtained in the 2 levels of the Sealed World Pagoda were only a small portion of this absolute art. Bloodblade said, this absolute art uses the world deity heart as a guide, and it can command other deity hearts. However, this absolute art cannot be imparted to you lightly. If you want to obtain it, you'll have to pass my test, Bloodblade said. Dongbua Shui Ying understood that it was already good enough for him to obtain an absolute art through a simple test. Master, may I know what the test is? It's very simple. In the mountains beside the Crimson Stone Courtyard, there's a prisoner imprisoned there. As long as you kill him, you will be able to obtain this absolute art. Bloodblade smiled. Star. Chapter 491. Bloodblade threw out a talisman. Hold this talisman, and as long as you activate it, you will be able to enter the place where the prisoner is imprisoned. Otherwise, you will not be able to find him. This prisoner is not so easy to kill, but there is no need to be anxious. When you kill him, you will be able to learn that absolute art. Yes. Dongbua Shui Ying received the talisman and replied respectfully. Bloodblade said, I need some of your blood. After saying that, an invisible force slashed at Dongbua Shui Ying's wrist, causing fresh blood to spurt into the air. Dongbua Shui Ying did not resist. At their level, bleeding no longer posed a threat to their lives. At most, it would consume some energy. In a short moment, the amount of blood in the air was like a small lake. Since you are my personal disciple, I will personally forge a blood-refined god weapon for you. Bloodblade said indifferently. With a wave of his hand, the lake of blood in the air was collected. Thank you, Master. Dongbua Shui Ying said. A blood-refined god weapon. A spear? Bloodblade asked again. Yes. Dongbua Shui Ying said respectfully. Because he cultivated the avatar technique, the two bodies would naturally have two blood-refined god weapons. Furthermore, the power of this spear would be even greater. After all, it was personally forged by the God Emperor. Naturally, it would be extraordinary. Cultivate well. After you kill that prisoner and obtain the absolute art, come and see me again. Bloodblade ordered. Dongbua Shui Ying immediately left respectfully. Bloodblade laughed after seeing his disciple leave. The black bird on his shoulder cawed. Bloodblade, you want Dongbua to kill that prisoner? That prisoner is not so easy to kill. Who knows, this Dongbua brat might only succeed after he becomes a stage 3 world deity. Then let him obtain the absolute art when he becomes a stage 3 world deity. It will be good for him to train. Bloodblade said indifferently. The more talented one is, the more he needs to be tempered. He's really unlucky to have you as his master. The black bird muttered. Bloodblade didn't argue with Blackbird. Following that, the surrounding space slightly rippled, and Bloodblade and Blackbird disappeared together, once again returning to the cosmic furnace in the underground palace. In the hall of Dongbua Shui Ying's cave abode, the Xia people, as well as Jing Xiu, stared at the group of attendants in front of them with their mouths agape. The hall was filled with all sorts of rare treasures. There were even 10 myriad flower true fruits on display. At a glance, the value of these treasures was so high that it made them all tremble in fear. Not to mention them, even the White Sand City Lord would be speechless. What are you guys doing? Jing Xiu asked. We've been ordered by His Majesty to deliver these to His Highness Dongbo. The black-robed elder in the lead smiled and said, Don't you know? His Highness Dongbua has already been accepted as His Majesty's direct disciple. Direct disciple? Emperor Yun Hai, Monarch Scarlet Flame, Monarch Sky Sea, the Dragon Mountain Emperor, and the others were all dumbfounded. Jing Xiu was in disbelief as well. They all knew that Dongbo had broken through, and it was normal for powerful existences to accept him as a personal disciple. But the Bloodblade, the strongest existence in the deity world, had a very high requirement for him to accept a direct disciple. Even grade 1 true meaning transcendence would find it hard to become his direct disciple. At this moment, Dongbua Shui Ying walked in from outside. Greetings, Your Highness. These are sent by His Majesty. Also, if Your Highness has the time, please move to another cavern abode. The black-robed elder smiled. He wasn't overly respectful, but the guards and servants beside him were extremely respectful. Amen? Dongbua Shui Ying looked at the elder. His aura was completely concealed. He couldn't sense it. He could only faintly feel an invisible pressure. This was a hidden expert from the Bloodshed God Palace, just like the black bird on His Majesty's shoulder. Thank you, everyone, Dongbua Shui Ying said. Since the items have been delivered, we'll be taking our leave. The black-robed elder smiled, turned around, and left with a group of guards and servants. The moment they left, the hall became noisy. Donghua, you've become His Majesty's personal disciple. He actually called you Your Highness? Of His Majesty's disciples, only personal disciples are qualified to be called Your Highness, right? The Xia people and the deities could hardly contain their excitement. Donghua Shuang nodded. Jing Xiu then asked, Snow Eagle, did His Majesty accept you as a personal disciple after you became a world deity? I've broken through to become a stage 2 world deity. Donghua Shuang said, there is nothing to hide. Since even Gong Feng and those servants knew about it, it was clear that God Emperor didn't intend to keep a secret. Currently, only the Temporal Island Lord and Myriad God Palace Head were capable of killing him when he was weak. In reality, he had never heard of Bloodblade and Temporal Island Lord, existences who stood at the apex of the deity world and dark abyss, disregarding their reputation to deal with a little fellow. They were already standing at the true pinnacle. Even when the almighty beings under their command were fighting, they could still calmly watch. Hearing that Donghua Ying had become a stage 2 world deity, the hall was silent at first, but then it exploded. Today's news was truly too much for them to bear. Ha ha, let's see if that Gong Feng still dares to be arrogant in front of Donghua. She probably doesn't even have the time to cry now. Donghua is too formidable. The hall was bustling with noise. Donghua Shuang first moved to another cavern dwelling, then accompanied them for a celebratory banquet. He even gave them several treasures that would be of use to them. Towards a personal disciple, His Majesty God Emperor was truly generous. Shuang had only given them a small amount, but it was enough to cause the deities of the Xia clan to reject them. Every single one of them was given a total of 100,000 deity crystals, and they were not willing to accept any more. Jing Xiu, I still need to go into seclusion to evolve my inner world. Unless it's an extremely important matter, don't bother with me. Donghua Shuang said. Amen, all right. Jing Xiu's smile was radiant. However, after Donghua Shuang entered the meditation room, she fell into deep thought. Walking along the corridor, Gong Feng's heart was filled with hesitation. She was very clear that she had already reached a fork in the road. She had offended a personal disciple. If Donghua Shuang wanted to deal with her, she would definitely not be able to stay here for long. Once the powers in the outside world knew that she had offended the personal disciple of Bloodblade, and that she was no longer serving God Emperor, her family would definitely be dealt a heavy blow, and her status would plummet. In the past, she had done a terrible job and had offended many people. Trouble would definitely follow. He's a personal disciple. It's not a big deal to apologize to him. So be it. I just have to bear with it. Gong Feng gritted her teeth and persuaded herself. After all, she had been in a high position for a long time. Bear with it, bear with it. Gong Feng gritted her teeth and hurriedly walked towards the cave abode. She knew that Donghua Shuang had already moved to a new cave abode. When she reached the entrance of the cave abode, the Dragon Mountain Emperor was there, drinking wine. Go and pass the message. I want to see Senior Brother Donghua. Gong Feng said. Now, all inner disciples and nominal disciples had to address Donghua Shuang as Senior Brother. Oh, the Dragon Mountain Emperor glanced at her and said casually, His Highness is in seclusion and will not see anyone. You didn't even go and pass the message. Gong Feng's expression turned ugly. In the past, she wouldn't have cared about a mere servant. But now, she could only bear with it because he was Donghua Shuang's man. You didn't hear? His Highness is in seclusion. The Dragon Mountain Emperor laughed coldly. Previously, when Gong Feng scolded Donghua Shuang in front of him, the Xia people could hear it from afar. After all, they were all divine spirits, and their vision and hearing were extremely sharp. They were also filled with anger. They hated this Gong Feng the most. All right, tell Senior Brother that I will come and pay my respects when he comes out of seclusion. Gong Feng forcefully held back her anger and turned to leave. She was on the verge of going berserk. The Dragon Mountain Emperor laughed coldly at this scene and then turned back into the cave abode to talk to the other Xiao people about this matter. Within the quiet room, a fragrant aroma lingered in the air. The roof was octagonal, and there were 8 strange purple wood pillars as the main pillars. They emitted strange waves that filled the room, causing one's heart to feel ethereal. Dongbua Shui Ying sat cross-legged and began to transform his inner world. Chapter 492. Within Dongbua Shui Ying's sea of consciousness, a tiny person was sitting cross-legged. This tiny person was Dongbua Shui Ying's soul, as well as his true deity heart. Currently, this tiny person was extremely tender and adorable. His aura was even more profound and powerful. Around him, the illusory image of the huge world had also become clearer. It revolved around the tiny person, and every action of the tiny person seemed to be filled with power. The world is me, and I am the world. Evolve. His deity sea had long been opened, and it had already reached the limits of the deity realm. Now, under the control of Dongbua Shui Ying's true deity heart, the vast deity sea began to undergo a huge transformation. The majestic deity sea immediately began to undergo a huge transformation. It was as if the world was being split apart, and the myriad existences were being born. The land began to extend, the mountains on the land began to bulge, the valleys began to form, and the grass on the plains began to grow, thanks to the large amount of treasures provided by his teacher, including a total of 100 million deity crystals. Shui Ying could absorb as many deity crystals as he wanted to transform his inner world. His inner world expanded all the way to a radius of 1 billion kilometers. How vast was it? Without a large amount of deity crystals, it would take a terrifying amount of time to slowly cultivate and absorb energy from the outside world. Hong Long Long, deep beneath this huge continent, a surging fiery red world deity energy surged. This world deity energy was even purer. It contained the profound mysteries of the world chaotic whole. Dongbua Shui Ying's body was also undergoing a rapid transformation. His time immemorial body was easily raised to the 4th level, and his great chaotic true force was also easily raised to the 3rd level. The 5th level of the time immemorial body and the 4th level of the great chaotic true force should have been something Shui Ying could have easily cultivated with his current realm, as long as he spent some time pondering over them. I'll come out of seclusion first. Dongbua Shui Ying was not willing to go into seclusion any longer. He reckoned that his master should have already finished refining his blood-refined deity weapon. Furthermore, he wanted to see how strong the prisoner was so that he could make some preparations. After all, other than the world deity grade secret techniques he learned in Crimson Rock Mountain, he also had 2 secret techniques he learned in the Sealed World Pagoda. Comprehending them one by one would take a long time. First, he had to know the prisoner's strength, and then he could think of a way to deal with him. Ka. The door to the meditation room opened, and Dongbua Shui Ying walked out. Soon, he saw a maid waiting outside. Your Highness. At the same time, she sent a voice transmission to Jing Xiao. Madam, His Highness has come out of seclusion. A figure in a light blue robe appeared outside the door. It was Jing Xiao. Jing Xiao smiled and said, This time, my seclusion time is quite short. All right, this is your blood-refined divine weapon sent by His Majesty. Hurry up and take it. This divine spear is too powerful. As he spoke, a crimson long spear appeared in his hand. The long spear exuded a terrifyingly high temperature, causing the space around it to distort. Jing Xiao did not dare to touch it with her hands, but Dongbua Shui Ying liked it from the bottom of his heart. Even his true deity heart was resonating with it. Come, Dongbua Shui Ying beckoned with his hands. So, the scarlet spear flew over. Good heavens! Eastern Europe's snow eagle's eyes lit up as he held onto the spear. Who would have thought that would be a high-grade world deity the moment it was forged? The blood-refined divine weapons of world deities were usually low-grade world deity the moment they were forged, after which they would have to be nurtured by themselves. Bloodblade was clearly not an ordinary weapon. A high-grade world deity, blood-refined divine weapon was even more valuable than a top-grade world deity weapon. This was because the power of a blood-refined divine weapon was naturally much greater. In the future, you shall accompany me to conquer the deity world. Dongbua Ying smiled. With a thought, the scarlet spear in his hand disappeared as he entered his inner world. Deep underground in the vast land of the inner world, surrounded by countless fiery red world deity energy, the spear floated and was constantly being nurtured by Dongbua Ying's energy. On the same day, Dongbua Ying left the Crimson Stone courtyard alone and arrived at the mountain range. Over there, holding onto the talisman, Dongbua Ying immediately sensed the direction. So, he turned into a ray of light as he sped towards his target. Piercing through the mountain range, his speed was extremely fast. Occasionally, he would pierce through space as he neared his target. Finally, an array ripple appeared in front of him. Dongbua Ying did not continue forward. Instead, he stood at his original position. Another starry blue-robed Dongbua Ying appeared beside him. One must know that with Dongbua Ying's attainments in the deity world and deity heart, he was able to create 8 world bodies in a single breath. Currently, the strength of the prisoner was unknown. This time, he was only here to probe the other party's strength. Naturally, Dongbua Ying would not risk his true body. The starry blue-robed Dongbua Ying grabbed onto the talisman and easily passed through the array ripple. Amen. The starry blue-robed Dongbua Ying's expression changed slightly. In front of him was a dark scene. In the middle of the darkness, there was a figure seated cross-legged. His body was also bound by 2 chains. According to the talisman, this is the place, and there is only one prisoner here. Dongbua Ying looked at the prisoner. He is the prisoner I want to kill. You are finally going to kill me, the figure seated cross-legged said in a low voice. He raised his head, revealing 2 sharp horns on his forehead. His entire body was covered in black scales, and both of his hands were sharp like blades. A pair of scarlet eyes were filled with ice-cold, killing intent. Abyss demon race? Dongbua Ying immediately recognized that this was a creature from the dark abyss. However, this was a demon that had already reached the world deity realm. Using the description of the dark abyss, it belonged to the great demon god. Amen? You, a world deity in the second heaven, are here to kill me? The great demon god's scarlet eyes stared at Dongbua Ying and sneered. What a joke. A joke? How would you know if you don't try? The starry blue-robed Dongbua Ying said. Scram! The great demon god roared. Hong! A terrifying sound wave spread out in all directions with the great demon god as the center. In an instant, it filled the entire dark region. The dark region rippled like the surface of a lake. Under the impact of the sound wave, the starry blue-robed Dongbua Ying's body rippled along with the lake and started to distort. He turned around and threw the talisman in his hand. With a whoosh, the talisman flew out of the range of the ripples of the formation, following which the starry blue-robed Dongbua Ying's body was completely distorted. The great demon god sneered as he looked at the scene. Then he closed his eyes and sat cross-legged, outside the ripples of the formation. Dongbua Ying's real body was dumbfounded. He had guessed that the prisoner might be very strong. Hence, he had carefully sent his world clone over. He never expected that a single shout would shatter his world clone. Fortunately, he reacted quickly. If he was slightly slower, he would have dropped the talisman. Whoosh! Dongbua Ying waved his hand, and the talisman landed in his hand. This power is too powerful. He is definitely a world deity in the third heaven. He might even be extraordinary among the world deities in the third heaven. Even if he was imprisoned, it would be very difficult to kill him. Dongbua Ying was speechless. What does master mean? Don't tell me that you want me to wait until I become a world deity in the third heaven before I can learn the unique skill? Asterisk, asterisk. Chapter 493. Looking at the ripples of the formation, Dongbua Shui Ying's expression turned solemn. If I want to kill this prisoner, I'll have to use all my strength. South. He then turned and left. In the world of the Xia people, within a quiet room on Crimson Rock Mountain, the white-robed Dongbua Shui Ying was sitting cross-legged, muttering to himself, I need to accelerate time by 100 times. Although I won't be able to comprehend the laws of the heavens and earth at this rate, studying secret techniques and secret skills won't be a problem. The flow of time in the quiet room immediately increased, and one could even feel the laws of the heavens and earth distorting. Fortunately, if it were any faster, it would not be suitable for cultivation. I need to raise my strength to the limit. Under 100 times the flow of time, the white-robed Dongbua Shui Ying began to calm his heart and ponder. First, he had to raise the time, immemorial body, and great chaotic true force, which were relatively easier. Next would be the secret techniques of the sealed world pagoda and self-created secret skills. After all, the later stages would be even more difficult. He had to raise his strength in all aspects. Otherwise, Dongbua Shui Ying would not have the confidence to kill the prisoner. The black-robed Dongbua Shui Ying flew back from the mountains and walked through the back door of Crimson Stone Courtyard. Apprentice Brother Dongbua. Greetings, Apprentice Brother Dongbua. At the back door, there was a group of inner disciples who took the initiative to greet him. Most of them were Stage 1 or 2 world deities. The ones leading them were 2 Stage 3 world deities. When the Stage 3 world deities faced Dongbua Shui Ying, they all respectfully called him Apprentice Brother. This was because they knew that Dongbua Shui Ying had become a Stage 2 world deity in just 5,000 years. It would not be long before he caught up to them, and perhaps even surpassed them. Furthermore, the personal disciples of the god Emperor usually grasped absolute arts. They cannot be viewed as ordinary world deities. Why are you all here? Dongbua Shui Ying asked. Apprentice Brother is now a personal disciple. As your juniors, I naturally have to come and congratulate you. A thin golden-robed man said with a smile, We've already prepared a banquet. Senior Apprentice Brother, some of your relatives and friends have already gone to the banquet. The other disciples also said enthusiastically. However, some of them were filled with regret. Who would have thought that this Dongbua Shui Ying would be so powerful? He's definitely one of the top transcendents in the history of the divine world, and his future is limitless. I didn't know if he held a grudge against me for being cold to him before. Dongbua Shui Ying nodded. Lead the way. Back then, when he had not revealed his true strength, some of his fellow disciples were gossiping about him behind his back, and some of them were cold to him. Dongbua Shui Ying was clear that he would naturally get close to those who treated him well. As for bearing a grudge, that wasn't to the extent of it, because other than Gong Feng, who had scolded and scolded them multiple times, the other disciples weren't that despicable. In the hall, surrounded by his fellow disciples, Dongbua Shui Ying naturally sat on the main seat. Beside him was his wife, Jing Xiao, following which the disciples sat down one by one. Senior Apprentice Brother. Senior Apprentice Brother Dongbua. A large group of disciples rushed into the hall, all of them bowing respectfully. The one leading them was Gong Feng. At this moment, Gong Feng's face was full of smiles as she said, Senior Apprentice Brother Dongbua, we've been waiting bitterly at the main entrance. But who would have thought that Senior Apprentice Brother would enter from the back door? We've missed our chance to welcome Senior Apprentice Brother. We're truly ashamed. Senior Apprentice Sister Gong Feng flattered him like this. How rare. Everyone, take a seat. Dongbua Shui Ying said. Thank you, Senior Apprentice Brother. Everyone took their seats. Senior Apprentice Brother Dongbua is now a personal disciple, and there's hope for him to become a powerful existence in the future. This junior apprentice brother has nothing else to offer and can only offer this meager gift to congratulate senior apprentice brother. These 2 mischievous stones are something I obtained by chance, and they're extremely beneficial to the true deity heart. A Stage 2 world deity honorary disciple who was seated at the back stood up. A plate appeared in his right hand, upon which 2 peculiar yellow stones were placed. He then passed it to the maidservant behind him. The maidservant took it and quickly walked from the back to a table near Dongbua Shuang. Dongbua Shui Ying raised his eyebrows. These two yellow divine stones were worth 5 million deity crystals. This was quite generous. This nominal disciple was called World Deity Hao Hui. This junior apprentice brother has some meager gifts to offer as well. At that moment, the other honorary disciples came forward with their gifts. If the gift was valuable enough, they would even introduce it. However, these honorary disciples were relatively weak, especially those stage 1 world deities. Even if they wanted to give such a valuable gift, they couldn't afford it. One by one, they came forward with gifts. Snow Eagle, your junior apprentice brothers and junior apprentice sisters' gifts are quite valuable. Jing Qiu transmitted with a smile. They're from the same sect as you, and now that they're giving you such a valuable gift, if they were to come to you in the future, I'm afraid you won't be able to reject them. If it's just a small matter, there's nothing wrong with helping a fellow disciple. As for the bigger matter, you'll have to think about it carefully. Dongbua Shui Ying transmitted back to his wife. As for his fellow disciples, they reckoned that, with senior brother Donbua's cultivation speed, he would probably become a stage 4 world deity in 1,000,000 years. To a world deity, this was an extremely short period of time. As a stage 4 world deity personally taught by His Majesty, possessing an absolute art and overwhelming strength, as well as being a lord of a material world, Dongbua Shui Ying's future position would definitely be above that of Monarch Mo Shui and the Calm Sea Prefecture Master. For such a future overlord, it was best to quickly seize the opportunity to befriend him with gifts. Otherwise, Dongbua Shui Ying would not even be interested in such a small gift in the future. The gifts were sent one after another, starting with honorary disciples, followed by inner disciples. First were stage 2 world deities, followed by stage 3 world deities. Gongfeng waited until the very end before standing up. She smiled faintly, revealing a rare hint of femininity. Her posture was also very humble. Senior brother Dongbua, junior sister has also prepared a few gifts. As she spoke, a long plate appeared in her left hand. This plate contained a total of 5 treasures. This is a top-grade cold star stone that originated from the moon star. The moment Gongfeng opened her mouth, it was obvious that these treasures were not ordinary. They came directly from a moon star. This is a demon heart left behind by a demon monarch from the dark abyss. This is just 5 treasures, but they added up to nearly 100 million deity crystals. The other disciples of the same sect added up would only be about the same amount as her. Firstly, Gongfeng's status was high, and she had accumulated many treasures over the years. Secondly, she was truly afraid of being chased out of the Crimson Stone courtyard. Hua, a black-robed old man, suddenly walked in from outside the hall. Behind him were 2 stage 3 world deity guards. After the black-robed old man walked in, he coldly said, Gongfeng, according to the orders of His Majesty, from today onwards, you are no longer required to be the manager of the Crimson Stone courtyard. Gongfeng was stunned. If she was no longer a manager, she would no longer have any reason to meet with God Emperor. She would no longer be special compared to the other inner disciples. It's you. Gongfeng fiercely turned her head to look at Dongbua Shui Ying. Her expression was somewhat malevolent. Dongbua Shui Ying, you're the one who complained to Master, right? Dongbua Shui Ying frowned. Didn't I just offend you a little? You're actually so vicious. Who asked you to hide your strength? If you didn't hide it, would I have treated you like this? Gongfeng was incomparably furious. She had forgotten that if Dongbua Shui Ying were to be publicly exposed and killed by a sacred Master Crimson Dust's enemy, Forefather Black Devil, with a single thought, would she pay with her life? So what if I become a personal disciple? I'm still a stage 3 world deity, and I'm even a 4th rank world deity in the Bloodshed God Palace. With a flip of her hand, the long plate disappeared. You don't have the qualifications to obtain my treasures. Indeed, Gongfeng's position within the Bloodshed God Palace was relatively high. Even stage 4 world deities could not casually kill her, so Dongbua Shui Ying could not do anything to her. Everyone had sent their treasures because they knew that it wouldn't be long before Dongbua Shui Ying became a superpower in the deity world. You're right. Dongbua Shui Ying sat on the highest seat. Looking down at the impudent Gong Feng, he nodded. I was the one who told Master and caused you to lose your position. It's you, it's really you. Gong Feng's expression was savage. You've offended me with your insolence, haven't you? Dongbua Shui Ying said coldly. Gong Feng was startled. The black-robed old man beside her nodded. An inner disciple who offends a personal disciple should be punished severely. Within the sect, personal disciples, inner disciples, and honorary disciples were divided into 3 ranks. The hierarchy was very strict. Just give her 100 lashes, Dongbua Shui Ying said coldly. Chapter 494. Within the hall, including the black-robed old man, a total of 4 world deity guards quickly surrounded Gong Feng. They were all stage 3 world deities. The Crimson Stone Courtyard was a rather special place. There were quite a few stage 3 world deity guards here. You dare. Gong Feng could not believe it. Pull her away, Dongbua Shui Ying coldly said. He could no longer be bothered with Gong Feng. He did not like messing around, but now that he had met such a person, Dongbua Shui Ying would not show any mercy. Let's go, world deity Gong Feng. You can't be thinking of resisting, right? The 4 world deity guards looked at Gong Feng. Gong Feng stared back at Dongbua Shui Ying, her eyes filled with anger, but she did not dare to resist. Whipping. Every lash was a pain that pierced the soul. Dongbua Shui Ying did not care about Gong Feng at all. He was more concerned about his own strength and wanted to obtain the absolute art that all-powerful existences coveted. Only those who were lucky enough to become a personal disciple of Bloodblade would have the opportunity to obtain an absolute art. Otherwise, if he wanted to learn an absolute art, it would really be too difficult. In his opinion, only with great power could one's influence be unshakable. Someone like Gong Feng, who relied solely on her official position, would be gone just like that. Of course, since many world deities could no longer advance, it was not wrong to seek a higher official position. Dongbua Shui Ying's true body and avatar were both cultivating in Crimson Rock Mountain and Crimson Stone Courtyard respectively. They were both under 100-fold time acceleration as they focused on their comprehension. His time immemorial body had easily reached the 5th level, and his survivability had undergone a qualitative transformation. He believed that if he were to meet that prisoner again, his body would not be destroyed by a single roar. His great chaotic true force had also reached the 4th level, and his strength had skyrocketed. Of the 2 secret techniques he learned in the Sealed World Pagoda, one was called the World Chains, or Shackles technique for short. The other was called the Herculean technique by Dongbua Shui Ying. This Herculean technique was similar to the world deity grade secret technique, the Great Chaotic True Force. Both used the chaotic deity heart as their foundations, but it was much more profound. Both specialized in strength. This Herculean technique from the Sealed World Pagoda was similar to the Great Chaotic True Force. In fact, it was even stronger. Hence, he could give up on the Great Chaotic True Force. Hua hua hua. Within the inner world, in the sky above the huge continent, there was a huge dark cloud. This dark cloud was formed by the water droplets of the Great Chaotic True Force. This piece of dark cloud would only become less and less as Shui Ying gave up on it. At the side, there was an even more majestic dark cloud. This dark cloud surged violently, and there were countless black snakes moving within it. This was the Herculean technique. The Herculean art was very similar to the Great Chaotic True Power. However, the water droplets of the Herculean technique did not form streams of water. Instead, they fused together to form black snakes that resembled black whips. In terms of pure strength, the Herculean art was more than twice as powerful as the 4th level of the Great Chaotic True Force. With strength, I should be able to threaten that prisoner's life, Dongbua Shui Ying thought. However, I still have to improve my understanding of the laws of profound mysteries and create an even more powerful secret skill. The first was a domain-type secret technique, the world prison formed by the chain technique. Now that he had become a Stage 2 world deity, this secret skill naturally had to be improved further. Within the quiet room of Crimson Stone Courtyard, the black-robed Donghua, Ying, who was sitting cross-legged, was surrounded by countless thin and long black chains. The black chains covered the entire quiet room, swimming around and attacking in a certain direction. Layers upon layers of chains intertwined with each other. This quiet room was also maintained at 100 times the normal speed of time. As a personal disciple of God Emperor, the conditions of this quiet room were even better than those at Crimson Rock Mountain. This cultivation session lasted for 3,000 years. Of course, due to the time acceleration, only 30 years had passed in the outside world. Amidst a chain of mountains near Crimson Stone Courtyard, Donghua Ying flew through the air with a calm expression on his face. The 3,000 years he spent in seclusion had allowed him to improve his secret skills to their limits in a short period of time. Even if he wanted to improve them any further, his power would still be limited. This time, I've cultivated for 3,000 years, and my usage of the laws of profound mysteries has reached a new height. Moreover, with the 2 secret skills from the Seal World Pagoda, I should have some hope. Donghua Ying soon saw the ripples of an array in front of him. His eyes flashed with a hint of killing intent. He had to give it his all. He had to succeed. With the talisman in hand, he directly entered the array. After entering, he saw nothing but darkness ahead of him. It was so gloomy that there were no signs of life. There was only a prisoner whose arms were bound by 2 shackles. That prisoner was sitting cross-legged with his head lowered. At this moment, he slowly raised his head to look at Ying. His face was covered in black scales, and his scarlet eyes were filled with suppressed anger. "It's you again?" This imprisoned great demon god's voice was low. After that, he roared furiously, "Scram!" just like the previous time. A terrifying sound wave instantly blasted against the surrounding area of darkness, causing the surrounding area to ripple like the surface of a lake. Donghua Ying's area was also rippling. However, as the ripple spread, countless black chains appeared around Donghua Ying's body. The black chains also spread rapidly, enveloping the entire area of darkness. The black chains were incomparably tough, and the sound wave was unable to destroy them at all. Under the cover of the countless chains, the sound wave's power was greatly reduced. When the sound wave reached Donghua Ying, who had already reached the 5th level of the time immemorial body, it was not even worth mentioning, let alone being greatly weakened. Even if it wasn't weakened at all, his current body was not something that could be destroyed by this sound wave. Interesting, the great demon god raised his head and scanned his surroundings. Dang, dang, dang. Countless black chains were densely packed, covering every inch of the area. As they collided with each other, metallic sounds could be heard. These black chains also swam around the great demon god's body, not binding him at all. "Brat, are you really here to kill me?" The great demon god sneered. "I have been tortured by your deity world for so many years, and have had enough of it. I'm also waiting for you to kill me. But you, a mere Stage 2 world deity, are here to deal with me? Isn't that too laughable? I'm here to kill you." Donghua Ying nodded. "However, I am very curious. You are the great demon god of the dark abyss. Why are you in prison here?" I'm not afraid to tell you." The great demon god sneered. "Who asked your deity world to be so benevolent? There are so many living beings living peacefully on so many planets. Yet I had to slaughter countless lives in order to cultivate the blood seed demon body. Every place in the dark abyss has a lord, and every world has a sovereign. TSK, the deity world is vast, and it is not easy to find me wherever I hide. I wantonly slaughtered and slaughtered, devouring countless flesh and souls, gradually forming a blood sea. Unfortunately, just as I was planning to retreat, I was discovered by a Stage 4 world deity. How unlucky. Still, since I dared to come to the deity world, I had already made my preparations. It's just that I did not expect that your powerful existences would actually act to destroy my true body, imprisoning this avatar of mine here. Isn't it just slaughtering the lives of a few starfields? What does it mean to the entire deity world? How is it, brat? Are you angry? Come, do your best. The great demon god sneered. He did not care about death in the slightest. When he was imprisoned, he already understood that he would die without a doubt. Donghua Shui-Ying watched on coldly, too lazy to say anything. Asterisk hua hua hua. Asterisk numerous starry blue-robed figures of Donghua Shui-Ying appeared in the dark area. There were a total of 9 starry blue-robed Donghua Shui-Yings. Including the true body, there were 10 of them. This was also because Donghua Shui-Ying's attainments in the world aspect was higher. Currently, the number of world bodies that he could manifest had naturally reached the limit, with a total of 9 of them. The true body and the 9 world bodies were scattered in different directions, each holding a spear in their hands, staring at the seated great demon god. Kill! Black-robed Donghua Shui-Ying gave the order. Asterisk hua hua hua. Asterisk the countless black chains that were swimming around the great demon god's body suddenly stacked up and mysteriously wrapped around the great demon god, completely wrapping him up. The 9 world bodies immediately attacked with spears in their hands. Chapter 495. The prisoner, the great demon god, sat there cross-legged, not moving at all. There was a cold smile on his face as he allowed the countless black chains to bind him. One spear after another pierced towards him from different directions, piercing through the tiny gaps left behind by the black chains. Each of the starry blue-robed Donghua Shui-Ying used a Herculean technique, causing energy to surge within their bodies. The spear tip pierced the great demon god's body. Chi! Sparks flew from the great demon god's black scales, and the spear tip only left a white mark. What? Donghua Shui-Ying's heart trembled. His strength had increased in all aspects, especially with the 2 secret techniques from the Sealed World Pagoda. He could be considered one of the strongest Stage 2 world deities, but he still could not break through the scales of the great demon god. Master, oh master, the prisoner you chose is simply too powerful. The great demon god continued to sit cross-legged, too lazy to move. He opened his eyes, and his scarlet pupils pierced through the black chains. He could still clearly see the black-robed Donghua Shui-Ying in the distance. He said in a low voice, "Brat, don't waste your energy with this little bit of strength. Is that so?" In the distance, the black-robed Shui-Ying held a scarlet-red spear in his hand. With a sudden spin, the spear streaked across the sky, bringing with it a mysterious might as it pierced toward the great demonic god. This scarlet spear was a blood-refined deity weapon forged from the Bloodblade. Donghua Shui-Ying named it Scarlet Cloud. This was to commemorate the Scarlet Cloud Mountain world, to commemorate the group of good friends of the Xia people, and also to remind himself that no matter how high he stood, he should never forget his original heart. The Scarlet Cloud spear's might was ferocious, but as it streaked across the sky and neared the great demon god, it suddenly disappeared without a trace. Pooh! When it reappeared, the Scarlet Cloud spear had already entered the body of the great demon god. This wasn't extreme piercing, but rather the utilization of the profound mysteries of the world. The world was him, and he was the world. Ha ha! The great demon god laughed out loud as he exerted strength in his arms. Pung, 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 pung! Countless chains directly broke apart. He laughed heartily as he looked at the distant black-robed Donghua Shui-Ying. The Scarlet Cloud spear had pierced through his chest, but there was a terrifying force pushing against it. Donghua Shui-Ying was unable to suppress it no matter how hard he tried. The spear was directly pushed out of the wound, but the wound quickly healed, and there was no damage at all. I'm cultivating the Blood Sea Demon body. Although it's not complete, it's still an extremely high level. The great demon god sneered, "With the Blood Sea Demon body, my body is like a sea of blood. You stabbing my scales is no different from stabbing my insides. If it weren't for the fact that I'm trapped here and unable to break free, I would have killed you with a single slap. Brat, you can't hurt me at all. You'd better scram and stop bothering me. Donghua Shui Ying's face turned cold. He also felt that although the spear had pierced through the great demon god's insides and pierced through some of his internal organs, not even a single particle had been destroyed. Not even a single particle had been destroyed. In other words, this great demon god did not even consume a single bit of energy. Those who had cultivated the undying body, as long as the particles were not destroyed, they would be unkillable. Only when the particles were destroyed would there be a chance of killing them. Blood sea demon body? There's no difference between stabbing your scales and piercing your insides. Donghua Shuang nodded his head lightly. Very good. Then I'll stab your scales. Whoosh. The spear instantly turned into a revolving scarlet vortex, and the surroundings seemed to be filled with the scene of the world collapsing. This was the secret technique with the strongest penetrative power that Donghua Shui Ying had created. The great demon god's arms were bound by 2 chains, but he still stood there coldly, not even bothering to block the attack. He allowed the scarlet vortex to turn into a single point and pierce into his chest. Pooh, the scales on his chest instantly shattered, revealing the muscles within. The spear only stopped after piercing into the muscles, and purplish blood flowed out from the wound. You can actually injure me? The great demon god revealed a look of shock. Although the wound was not big, the scales and muscles on his body had been completely destroyed, and his energy had been consumed. Under normal circumstances, he would naturally not be afraid of it. However, he was currently imprisoned, and the world deity energy in his body had been sealed. He could not even release a single strand of energy. Even his true deity heart was suppressed, and he was unable to activate his domain. The only way he could fight was to rely on his body to fight in close combat. Thus, he could only rely on the life force of the blood sea demon body to replenish his energy. Although his life force was extremely tyrannical, if he continued to exhaust it, it would eventually be exhausted. I really thought that I wouldn't be able to injure you. Clearly, you aren't that powerful. A sharp light flashed in Donghua Shui Ying's eyes. Die. So. Immediately, 9 starry blue-robed Donghua Shui Yings charged forward. Countless black chains appeared from within the gloom domain, binding and restricting the movements of the great demon god. Scram! The great demon god no longer dared to use his body to block the attacks. With a wave of his hand, the countless black chains enveloping him shattered. Pung 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 pung. The 9 world bodies brandished their spears at the same time, displaying their strongest secret skill. As the spears moved, it was as though a vast world was pressing down on him. If it was just a single world body attacking, it would have been fine. However, a total of 9 of them were executing such a powerful move at the same time. Their combined power was comparable to that of a stage 3 world deity. Pung, with 2 chains binding him, the great demon god was unable to dodge at all. The only thing he could do was to move within a small area of 10 meters. The 9 spears furiously lashed at his body from the same direction. The great demon god's legs were directly lashed off the ground. After flying for 7 or 8 meters, he was stopped in midair by the 2 chains. Pooh! The black-robed Shui Ying took advantage of this opportunity to strike out with his spear. The Scarlet Cloud Spear once again brought along the might of the world collapsing and shattering as it pierced the great demonic god's back. The scales on the great demonic god's back immediately exploded and shattered, leaving behind a wound. Damn it! The great demon god was enraged and began to resist with all his might. Stop struggling. It's useless. Accompanied by Donghua Shui Ying's voice, the 9 starry blue-robed Donghua Shui Ying once again attacked in a frenzy. Countless black chains once again interfered. The weapons of the world bodies were ultimately not as sharp and powerful as the Scarlet Cloud Spear. However, if it was a strength-based suppression, the difference would not be that great. The spears lashed out furiously, causing the great demon god's figure to become unstable. After all, It was difficult for 2 hands to fight against 9 spears. Moreover, there were countless chains interfering. The 9 world bodies interfered to create opportunities, while the true body wielded the Scarlet Cloud Spear. The Scarlet Cloud Spear traversed several kilometers, taking the opportunity to stab at the great demon god's body time and time again, causing the great demon god to suffer injuries time and time again. The great demon god was incomparably furious. He had cultivated the Blood Sea demonic body to a certain extent and stood at the peak among stage 3 world deities. However, because his true deity heart was suppressed, his world deity energy was sealed, and he was even imprisoned, he was actually being bullied by a stage 2 world deity. Since you dare to force me, then come at me. The great demon god went berserk. Arms actually began to grow from his armpits. Finally, they turned into 8 arms. The great demonic god stood at his original position, brandishing his 8 arms, easily blocking the 9 spears. Although he was unable to mobilize his world deity energy, the speed at which he brandished his arms was still very fast with just the power of his demonic body. For a moment, no matter how Dongbua Shuang attacked, even if it was the Scarlet Cloud Spear, the great demon god was able to block it easily. He no longer foolishly clashed head-on, but relied on the intricate laws of profound mysteries to block the attacks. Dongbua Shuang used all his strength and tried to think of a way. However, the great demon god, who had expended his life force to grow 6 more arms, was now able to defend himself so well that not even a drop of water could leak out. No matter what moves Dongbua Shuang used, he was unable to shake the great demon god. As for the world prison chains, they might pose a great threat to stage 2 world deities, causing them to flee in fear. However, the great demon god could casually shatter the countless chains with a single strike. What can I do? What else can I do? Dongbua Shuang thought to himself. Star. Chapter 496. Pung Pung Pung. The great demonic god's 8 arms were very casual when he blocked the attacks of the 9 world bodies, slapping them away casually. After all, the 9 world bodies did not have any blood-refined divine weapons, and could not harm the great demon god. The great demon god only needed to focus on blocking the Scarlet Cloud Spear. For a moment, no matter how Dongbua Shuang attacked, he could not harm the great demon god in the slightest. You are unable to use your world deity energy, and growing 6 extra arms must have consumed a lot of your life force. Dongbua Shuang stopped. Yes, it consumed my life force. The scarlet eyes of the great demon god were filled with rage as he stared at Dongbua Shuang. I am imprisoned here, unable to replenish my energy, so I have to save every bit of my life force. But you force me to do this. Although growing 6 extra arms consumed a lot of my life force, I only need to maintain them. The life force required to maintain them is very little, and it is not difficult for my Blood Sea demon body to last for 100 million years. Dongbua Shuang was silent. He knew that the great demon god was not lying. He was also a stage 2 world deity, and even if he could not absorb energy from the outside world, his powerful body could still survive for a long time. It should be normal for him to maintain 6 extra arms for 100 million years. 100 million years? He would have long become a stage 4 world deity. Oomph! The black-robed Shuang turned around and took a step, passing through the ripples of the array. As for the other 9 starry blue-robed Yings, they dissipated like bubbles. The countless black shackles also dissipated into nothingness. Sending Dongbua Shuang off, the great demon god's eyes were filled with rage. The last time he did not care, but this time he was forced to grow 6 arms, and each arm was covered with scales, muscles, and bones. These were the arms of the Blood Sea demon body, and they were abnormally strong. Each of his arms consumed a lot of energy. Growing 6 arms, almost half of the energy hidden in his body was consumed. He could only maintain it now. If he retracted his arm, he would lose a lot of energy the next time he regenerated it. He had a feeling that this stage 2 world deity would not give up so easily. Bloodshed God Palace, within a secret underground great hall. The huge cosmos furnace was still burning fiercely. Bloodblade was still sitting cross-legged, watching the cosmos furnace. To have great power, one must have great patience. Bloodblade was very clear about how difficult it was to take that step. The degree of difficulty of this step was much higher than the difficulty of becoming an almighty being as a stage 4-world deity. However, the moment he stepped out, the Bloodblade, would become the undisputed strongest expert. He would completely surpass the 3 rulers of the Abyss, the Temporal Island Lord, and the others. However, Bloodblade knew that all of them wanted to take that step. Bloodblade, that Donghua brat has cultivated 2 secret techniques from the Seal World Pagoda and is now fighting with that prisoner. The blackbird on Bloodblade's shoulder said, "Just a little bit more." That prisoner grew 6 arms, and now he has a total of 8. If he focuses on defense, that brat Donghua won't be able to kill him. As his teacher, you're too ruthless. Are you really going to force him to become a stage 3-world deity before he can learn the absolute art? I have to force him a little. His talent has always been high, and his heart is filled with arrogance. This arrogance needs to be suppressed and tempered, Bloodblade calmly said. Although Donghua Shui Ying was a disciple with a good temper, God Emperor was very clear that anyone with great accomplishments would have their own arrogance. That arrogance needed to be tempered and tempered. For example, God Emperor himself had failed time and time again in his attempt to grasp a higher level of power from the cosmos furnace. After countless failures, God Emperor had even prepared himself for 1,000,000,000,000 years or 1,000,000,000,000 years. To not be arrogant or rash even after 1,000,000,000,000 years, what kind of temperament did one have to have? The moment one became anxious, one would be unable to comprehend anything. Donghua Shuiying, who had been intentionally tempered by his teacher, was currently flying back to Crimson Stone Courtyard from the back of the mountain range. Senior apprentice brother Donghua. Some of the disciples within Crimson Stone Courtyard greeted him respectfully. Donghua Shuiying responded with a smile and soon returned to his cave dwelling. Master was able to set up this test. If it was so easy to succeed, then there wouldn't be much meaning to the test. Donghua Shuiying quickly suppressed his complicated thoughts. When I fought with that prisoner, if he hadn't grown 6 arms, I could have easily exhausted him to death. But now that he has grown 6 arms, I have to become even stronger. Not only must my true body become stronger, but my world bodies must also become stronger. My world bodies must also be able to threaten him. If his true body was slightly stronger, the great demon god could rely on his realm to defend against it. If his 9 world bodies were able to injure him, then it would not be easy for the great demon god to defend against them. To make the world bodies even more threatening, I must create an even more powerful secret art. Donghua Shuiying thought. He was in no rush. His current strength was already at the limit of what he could raise in a short period of time. If he wanted to raise it any further, he would need much more time. He first accompanied his wife, Jing Xiu, as they ate and chatted. Snow Eagle. Jing Xiu poured wine for Donghua Shuiying and asked, "You and Qing Yao have long since become deities. The 2 of them can't possibly stay in Crimson Stone Mountain forever, right? For safety reasons, they have avatar techniques. They can also do the same as us and let their avatars roam the deity world. My idea is to let them roam the deity world as they wish. Their combat power is still too weak." Donghua Shuiying said, "Even with a world deity great secret art, they are comparable to a peak stage deity." Jing Xiu said, "Not weak. You were the overlord of Snow Eagle territory when you were 8 years old." Shuiying laughed. That was true. He had also allowed them to take risks within Crimson Rock Mountain. Even though the treasure spirit, Crimson Rock, had always been protecting them in secret, his children did not know that he was protecting them, so they had long since been tempered. Thus, they had long since tempered themselves. How about this? I am currently working hard to deal with a prisoner in the back mountain. Donghua Shuiying said, "The moment I kill the prisoner, I should be able to graduate. If I succeed in a short period of time, I will also send Senior Gobai and He Fei Yun out of the material world. At that time, I will naturally send Yuer and Qing Yao out as well. If I'm unable to break through in a short period of time, I will also send them out. Jing Xiu nodded and did not press him any further. The main reason was that Dongbui Yuer and Qing Yao were both big shots in the Crimson Stone Mountain world. They were near invincible, and there were very few opportunities for them to temper themselves. Right, Jing Xiu, why do I rarely see you cultivate? Dongbui Shui Ying asked. Your talent in cultivation is not bad. I was hoping that you would become a world deity in the future. Jing Xiu was startled. She immediately said, Who said that? My true body often cultivates in Crimson Stone Mountain. My avatar is in the deity world, so naturally I have to comprehend the heavens and earth. One cultivates in a time-accelerated manner, while the other comprehends the heavens and earth. It is better to work hard and relax at the same time. I feel that you don't cultivate much in Crimson Stone Mountain. Dongbui Shui shook his head. Jing Xiu, don't slack on your cultivation. If your realm is too low, you won't be able to live for long. Those peak deities usually only live for 100 million years or so before they are unable to maintain their true deity hearts. Their true deity hearts will begin to crumble. I understand. Jing Xiu smiled. She felt a sweetness in her heart. I know you can't bear to part with me. Dongbui Shui nodded. He had given many spirit fruits and treasures to his wife. As the master of Crimson Stone Mountain, he naturally had many treasures. After all, the treasures left behind by his sacred master Crimson Dust after his death belonged to him. It was just that if he did not work hard, how could he become a world deity? Within the cultivation room of the cavern, a fragrance pervaded the air. The black-robed Dongbui Shui Ying was seated cross-legged. Countless runes floated in front of him. These runes rapidly condensed before finally forming a perfect black sphere. This was the chain technique. It was the fundamental deity imprint. Naturally, it had already reached the second level of the chain technique. Both the chain technique and Herculean technique had 6 levels. Stage 1 world deities had a chance of cultivating the first level, while Stage 2 world deities had a chance of cultivating the second level. Dongbui Shui Ying had long since succeeded in cultivating it. Countless runes condensed beside him, forming a black water droplet. This was the fundamental deity imprint of the Herculean technique. Dongbui Shui Ying looked at the tiny black sphere and black water droplet floating in front of him. The utilization of the laws of profound mysteries is truly unfathomable. Dongbui Shui Ying sighed in praise. The 2 secret techniques of the sealed world pagoda were truly exquisite. For instance, the great chaotic true force could already be considered quite exquisite. However, it used the same laws of profound mysteries to form a water droplet. As for the Herculean technique, its power was more than double that of the great chaotic true force. This was because the Herculean technique of the sealed world pagoda utilized the laws of profound mysteries of the water droplet to a greater degree. Observe these 2 secret techniques and comprehend how to utilize the laws of profound mysteries within them. Then, I can use them to create a secret skill, Dongbui Shui Ying muttered to himself. It was just like when he was still a transcendent. He had borrowed the profoundness of the great chaotic true force imprint to create the chaotic suppression. It was the same principle. Observe the profound mysteries of the secret technique, absorb them, and create a secret skill. This was a path that many experts would choose. However, it was relatively difficult and time-consuming. I'll take it slow. Dongbui Shui Ying began to concentrate on comprehending the profound mysteries of the 2 secret techniques of the sealed world pagoda. He wanted to absorb them and create an even more powerful secret skill. Within Crimson Rock Mountain, the white-robed Dongbui Shui Ying was also cultivating. Other than comprehending secret techniques, he would occasionally relax and go out for a stroll. He wanted to comprehend the laws of heaven and earth so that he could comprehend a 3rd grade 1 deity heart, the extremity deity heart. Comprehending another Grade 1 deity heart was the most direct way to increase his strength. Moreover, comprehending the laws of heaven and earth did not affect the creation of a secret skill. This was because the creation of a secret skill was done under a time acceleration of 100 times. Chapter 497. In the blink of an eye, it had been 1,000 years since Dongbua Ying became the personal disciple of Bloodblade. The entire deity world had long since heard that Bloodblade had accepted another personal disciple, the brat Dongbua from a myriad flower feast, and that Dongbua had become a stage 2 world deity in just 5,000 years. He was ranked at the forefront of the entire history of the deity world and Dark Abyss. Many powerful existences sighed and regretted not accepting such a disciple. However, none of this affected Dongbua Ying. After all, he had yet to graduate and was still cultivating in the Bloodshed God Palace. South, on a chain of mountains next to the Crimson Stone Courtyard, the black-robed Dongbua Ying was currently flying through the sky towards his destination. The wind howled, but Dongbua Ying's eyes remained calm. This was his third time heading towards the location of the prisoner. The first time, he had just become a stage 2 world deity. He had merely gone to investigate the strength of the prisoner, but a single roar had shattered his world body. The second time, he had cultivated many secret techniques and created his own secret skills, but all his efforts had been in vain. This was the third time. I've arrived. Dongbua Ying slowed down his speed. A ripple appeared in front of him. He passed through the ripple. His surroundings were still shrouded in darkness. The great demon god who cultivated the blood sea demonic body was still seated cross-legged. He had 8 arms, 2 of which were shackled. The shackles were also suppressing the great demon god's world deity energy and true deity heart, preventing him from escaping. The great demon god raised his head. Beneath his pair of horns, his scarlet eyes stared at Dongbua Ying. The corners of his mouth curled up. You've arrived? Faster than I expected. It's only been 1,000 years, but you're still a stage 2 world deity. What new trump card do you have? You'll find out soon enough, the black-robed Dongbua Ying coldly replied. Hua hua hua, countless black chains appeared around Dongbua Ying's body. They quickly spread out in all directions, covering the entire dark area. However, the great demon god did not care at all. At the same time, the countless black chains swimming around the great demon god instantly wrapped around the great demon god. Like before, the great demon god exerted some strength in an attempt to break free. The great demon god tried to break free but was unable to do so. This caused the great demon god to be startled. The power of these chains has increased by so much. With this one move, it should be enough for him to dominate the universe deities in the second heaven. However, many stage 2 world deities, such as those who cultivated the extremity deity heart or the world deity heart, had the means to traverse and escape. The world prison was unable to truly restrain the enemy. What was more important was the suppression of all domains. No matter where you escape to, you will be suppressed by the chains within the range of my domain. And because the great demon god was imprisoned here, he could not escape, so he was easily bound by the chains of the world. Break! The great demon god's entire body erupted with strength, his aura skyrocketing. His 8 arms exerted strength, and the countless chains wrapped around him were instantly shattered. Around him, numerous Dongbua Ying dressed in starry blue robes appeared. A total of 9 Dongbua Ying were scattered in different directions, each holding a spear and attacking. The spears streaked across the sky, bringing with them a terrifying power that caused the surrounding space to collapse. One by one, the spears stabbed towards the great demon god. The great demon god also waved his 8 palms to block. Pung! When the palms collided with the spear tip, the terrifying power caused the great demon god to be shocked. He could not help but take a step back. Following the other spears, the great demon god was besieged, and he had to constantly move his feet to reduce the power of the spears. The power of the spears was no longer enough for him to stand on the same spot. Boom! In the distance, the black-robed Dongbua, Ying, took the opportunity to stab with his spear. The spear was ferocious, and in an instant, the scarlet cloud spear arrived behind the great demon god. The great demon god waved his arm, wanting to dodge the attack from the side. However, when his palm struck the spear tip, the scales on his palm shattered. The spear tip changed direction slightly, but it still stabbed into the back of the great demon god. The scales were shattered, and a large hole was pierced through his back, causing blood to splatter everywhere. The great demon god was shocked, and he shouted, "Your spear technique has changed. As long as it can kill you, it is a good spear technique." The black-robed Dongbua, Ying, attacked wildly from afar. The scarlet cloud spear traversed several kilometers, and its power was monstrous. The attacks of the other 9 world bodies were similarly violent. It was enough to shatter the scales of the great demon god. However, it was not to the extent of shattering the particles. Still, it was enough to change the shape of his body. If you want to kill me, even if my true deity heart and my world deity energy are sealed, don't even think of killing me. The great demon god separated 3 of his arms to defend against Dongbua Ying's scarlet cloud spear. As for the attacks of the other 9 mirage bodies, he mainly relied on his 5 arms to block them. Sometimes, he would rather use his body to block 1 or 2 attacks. For a moment, the scales on the great demon god's body kept shattering. Although he seemed to be heavily injured, the scales turned into water and rapidly healed. There were no substantial injuries at all. Pung, pung, pung. Countless black shackles came to bind him. The power of the shackles had increased, and every time, he had to use his full strength to strike. This affected the great demon god's defense. Fortunately, the spear techniques of his world bodies are still unable to injure me. The great demon god felt sullen. Damn it. If I wasn't completely sealed and unable to dodge, I wouldn't be in such a miserable state. If I could use my full strength, I would be able to slap him to death in 2 or 3 moves. Relying on these 2 secret skills, as I expected, their power is still lacking. Dongbua Ying thought, then I shall use my final killing move. The black-robed Dongbua Ying and the 9 starry blue-robed Dongbua Ying all changed their spear techniques at the same time. The spears streaked across in an astonishing arc, tearing apart and destroying everything. When the spear pierced over, even the great demon god was shocked. He could feel a faint threat. This was the first time he felt threatened when fighting against this stage 2 world deity. When the spear pierced over, it displayed a scene of everything being destroyed. This spear seemed to represent destruction. The scarlet cloud spear and the other 9 spears each represented destruction that caused one's heart to palpitate. I must block it. The great demon god even split out 4 of his arms to defend against the scarlet cloud spear. The scarlet cloud spear was a blood-refined deity weapon and was also an upper-grade world deity rank weapon. Its power was clearly much stronger. One could see the 4 arms of the great demon god creating a space-time mirage. From the side, the 4 arms were either slapping or pulling, causing the scarlet cloud spear to change direction, preventing it from piercing into the great demon god. However, under the influence of the black chains, the other 9 spears were not so easy to defend against. Pu, a total of 5 spears pierced into the great demon god. The great demon god's body was smashed into pieces, with many bloody holes appearing. In an instant, the great demon god's body was covered in blood. This caused the great demon god's eyes to be filled with shock and anger. The world body can injure me. Great demon god, you're dead. Dongbua Ying roared, die. From different directions, the 10 Dongbua Yings were madly attacking. The black chains entangled him time and time again. The great demon god roared in anger as he struggled to break free from the black chains. He tried his best to defend against the attacks, but the power of each spear was extremely strong. The power of the scarlet cloud spear was even more terrifying. He had to split out 4 of his arms to barely defend against it. After all, the great demon god was barehanded. He did not even have a weapon. His scales were not enough to defend against any of the spears. His scales were shattered, his muscles were torn, and his bones were broken. The great demon god's injuries were extremely severe. How can this be? The great demon god was extremely unwilling. You're just a stage 2 world deity, yet you've already created such a destructive secret skill, and you actually succeeded. It's all because of you. Dongbua Shuang roared. Chapter 498. The great demon god was surrounded and attacked by 10 Dongbua Shui Yings. He was the great demon god, yet he was unable to use his domain, world deity energy, or even a weapon. Furthermore, he was bound by 2 chains and could only move within a 10-meter radius. It was extremely sullen, and the injuries on his body worsened. Countless scales were shattered, and his body was riddled with bloody holes. Every single one of these wounds required a huge consumption of his life force. How long has it been? Only 1,000 years? You actually managed to comprehend such a destructive secret skill? The great demon god knew that he was about to die, but he still did not dare believe it. Dongbua Shuang did not show any mercy and continued to attack. 1,000 years? With time accelerated by 100 times, that was 100,000 years. Comprehending the fundamental god seal of the shackles technique, spending over 3,000 years to perfect the domain-type secret skill, World Prison. Against stage 2 world deities, this domain-type secret skill posed a huge threat. But against the stage 3 great demon god, it could only interfere. Comprehending the fundamental god seal of the Herculean technique, spending over 6,000 years to create a technique that specialized in strength. Dongbua Shuang named it Heaven and Earth Break. What he pursued was the pinnacle of strength. However, Dongbua Shuang was not confident. Furthermore, he would occasionally comprehend the heaven and earth and ponder over the extremity deity heart. World chaos hole, extremity. This was the scene of a world being destroyed. A huge world began to collapse, turning into a chaos hole. Finally, the chaos hole collapsed, turning into the final extremity. Extremity was the end of all things. However, this extremity was also the beginning of everything. Once again, it would transform into a new world. Although he had yet to comprehend the extremity deity heart, it had given Dongbua Shuang an ambition. Why don't I fuse the destruction of an entire world into a single move? Dongbua Shuang thought. World deities cultivated normally. Usually, they would use a single world deity heart as their primary deity heart. For example, Dongbua Shuang used the world deity heart as his primary deity heart. He would first fuse the chaos deity heart into his chaotic deity heart, and in the future, he would also fuse the extremity deity heart and the space-time deity heart. Because the world deity heart was his main focus, the laws of profound mysteries that Dongbua Shuang grasped were more oriented towards the world. The secret skill that he created was based on the world itself, while the other deity hearts were used as support. Creating a secret skill like this was very easy, but the Almighties grasped the complete rules of heaven and earth. The secret skill killer move that they created could contain the laws of heaven and earth in one move, and its power was extremely terrifying. Encompassing as many rules of the world as possible and using them to their fullest was the path of the strongest secret skill. Stage 4 world deities, for example, were gradually able to comprehend the various deity hearts, even though they were stuck at the final step and were unable to become powerful existences. However, Stage 4 world deities would usually create terrifying killing moves that encompassed as many laws of the world as possible. Some of them were even more powerful than ordinary almighties due to the perfect coordination of the heaven and earth laws and the strength of their secret techniques. The same ingredients, but the quality of the dishes made was different. Powerful existences could generally create killing moves that were stronger than Stage 4 world deities. But there were still extremely powerful Stage 4 world deities. If all Stage 4 world deities were able to create such a killing move, then it would be impossible for them to do so. Only a small number of Stage 3 world deities could successfully create such a move. The moment they succeeded, they would be able to stand at the apex with this secret skill alone. For example, the Lord of White Sand City's true secret techniques weren't that strong. His only trump card was the Annihilation White Sand. The Annihilation White Sand mainly relied on the secret technique he obtained from the Sealed World Pagoda and his long years of perfecting it. But Dongbua Shui Ying was different. He was more ambitious. He wanted to fuse the destruction of the laws of heaven and earth into a single move. From his point of view, the world, chaos whole, and extremity deity hearts were at different stages of the destruction of the laws of heaven and earth. It was a pity that he had yet to comprehend the extremity deity heart. Thus, the power of this move wasn't fierce enough. But even so, Dongbua Shui Ying had spent a great deal of effort to create this move. He had comprehended the laws of heaven and earth and became a Stage 2 world deity in just 5,000 years. But under the acceleration of time, he had spent nearly 90,000 years perfecting this move. He had entered seclusion for 100,000 years, nearly 90,000 years, all for the sake of this move. His talent was extremely high, and the world, chaos whole, and extremity deity heart were the three stages of destruction of the laws of heaven and earth. Although he had yet to comprehend the extremity deity heart, Dongbua Shui Ying had already comprehended the extremity heart when he was a transcendent, and he had long since reached the limits of the deity realm. With the assistance of a portion of the extremity heart, Dongbua Shui Ying had finally created a move that represented the destruction of the world, the spear technique destruction. I really didn't expect that I would die in your hands, in the hands of a Stage 2 world deity. I really can't accept this. I can't accept this. The great demon god's entire body was in tatters, and his life force had been completely exhausted. His body could no longer recover, and his other 6 arms were beginning to collapse. Pooh! Following the wound on the great demon god's head, the scarlet cloud spear pierced into the great demon god's skull. The great demon god's scarlet eyes were filled with anger and unwillingness. But gradually his aura began to dim. Dongbua Shui Ying pulled out his spear, and the 9 world bodies around him dissipated. The world chains also dissipated. This spear technique of mine, destruction, wants to encompass the destruction of the laws of heaven and earth, but it is still too crude. Dongbua Shui Ying thought, if I can comprehend the extremity deity heart, then this move will have a basic framework. To truly reach the grand completion, he had to become a Stage 4 world deity. At that time, he would be able to comprehend the other deity hearts he had yet to comprehend. Only by comprehending the many world deity hearts would he be able to reach the grand completion of this move. But to deal with a sealed and imprisoned great demon god, this should be enough. Dongbua Shui Ying looked at the corpse of the great demon god. This great demon god's strength was probably close to that of the White Sand City Lord. If he was not restricted, he would probably be killed in a few moves. But if that was the case, his teacher would not have used him as a test. Ka. Suddenly, next to the corpse of the great demon god, the ground began to bulge up. Dongbua Shui Ying was startled. The bulge rose up to a height of more than 10 meters, and there were layers upon layers of stairs, forming the shape of a tower. At the very top of the bulge, a bright white sphere suddenly appeared. This white sphere floated in the air, and its entire body was dazzling white. At the same time, it emitted a sharp light that caused Dongbua Shui Ying to feel apprehensive. This white sphere floated and rotated slowly, with a formless sharp light surrounding it. The sharp light it emitted easily cut through the surrounding space, causing countless cracks to appear in the space. As Dongbua Shui Ying looked at it, he felt an instinctive sense of oppression and fear. He even felt that this white sphere, even a Stage 4 world deity would be able to cut through it, much less him. Dongbua walked forward and grabbed it. A cold voice rang out. "Teacher!" Dongbua Shui Ying heard it. Grab it? That sharp light would probably shatter him into pieces. But since his teacher had instructed him to do so, and he had also cultivated a doppelganger technique, he had nothing to fear. He immediately walked up the stairs step by step. As he neared the white sphere, the sharp light emitted by the white sphere began to retract. As he neared, Ying could vaguely see the countless patterns on the surface of the white sphere. These patterns were mysterious and unfathomable. With a grab, he grabbed onto the white sphere. Rumble! At that moment, a terrifying force was emitted from the white sphere, instantly rushing into Ying's body. Even the surface of his body was covered with a layer of white flowing light, as though he was wearing a bright white armor. Ying, who was standing on the stairs, was dressed in white armor. His aura was soaring, and he was emitting a terrifying sharp light. The sharp light emitted from his body cut through the surroundings wantonly. This was a terrifying force that could cause even powerful existences to be wary of him. Ying's mind was in a state of chaos. Luminous sun, extreme yang, unyielding, indestructible, unbreakable. A majestic voice reverberated in Ying's mind. A huge amount of mysterious information surged into his mind. Even with the strength of Ying's true deity heart, he was unable to think for a moment as he was drowned by the endless information. Chapter 499. Sometimes it was an instant, sometimes it was a long time. Within his consciousness, the surging flow of information finally came to a stop. His true deity heart could now easily think. Within his vast sea of consciousness, the little person who looked similar to Ying was currently looking up at a dazzling white ball of light floating above. This white ball of light had countless patterns revolving around it. It was incomparably mysterious. Looking at this white ball of light, Ying felt as though he was looking at the laws of the material world. As a lord of a material world, he could transform into a mortal world and look at the laws of the material world. It was vast, much more complicated than the laws of the world. Billions of mortal worlds formed the material world. But now, looking at this white ball of light, it had the charm of the material world's laws. It is indeed an absolute art that even powerful existences yearn for. It is an absolute art that can allow one to transcend realms. Although Ying was prepared for this, he could not help but feel excited after receiving such a huge amount of information. He was fortunate enough to be accepted as a disciple by Bloodblade during the Myriad Flower Feast. Then, he became a Stage 2 world deity in just 5,000 years. That was how he was accepted as a personal disciple and had the chance to learn an absolute art. As for the crude spear art destruction that he had painstakingly created after 100,000 years of hard work, only then was he able to successfully kill the prisoner, the great demonic god, and learn the ultimate art. This was actually secondary. After all, it was just a difference of a step earlier or a step later. Luminous sun, extreme yang and unyielding, indestructible. Ying revealed a smile as he walked downstairs. He casually sat cross-legged on an empty ground and began cultivating this absolute art. After all, this was the Bloodshed God Palace. It was extremely safe, and nobody could barge into this prison. Furthermore, this absolute art was too tempting. Thus, Ying decided to cultivate here. The Luminous Sun absolute art had a total of 6 volumes. Stage 1 world deities could cultivate the first volume. Stage 2 world deities could cultivate the second, and so on. Every volume had a total of 4 transformations. The first transformation was the entry level. The second transformation was the small success level. The third transformation was the large success level. The fourth transformation was the grand completion level. As an absolute art, cultivating it was extremely difficult. It would be amazing if one could cultivate it to the large success level. He wanted to truly cultivate to the grand perfection of fourth revolution. It was truly difficult. Emperor Gerzang, for example, had an ultimate technique, but he still wasn't qualified to become one of the 3 patriarchs. For example, Monarch Green also cultivated an absolute art. However, he could be said to be the strongest expert below the level of Bloodblade and Temporal Island Lord. This was the difference between cultivating absolute arts. For example, the Bamboo Mountain Prefecture Master was only a universe god of the fourth heaven, but he relied on his unique skill to become one of the three ancestors. He had also taught personal disciples before, and some of his disciples had been lucky enough to be taught absolute arts. However, none of them had reached such a dazzling level. Phew! Dongbua Shuang sat down cross-legged and took a deep breath. The 9 golden pearls on the ground in front of him immediately released a golden light into Dongbua Shuang's mouth. His comprehension ability was already extremely high, and he was able to become a stage 2 world deity in just 5,000 years. How powerful was that? Then he spent a total of 100,000 years to refine the secret skill, creating the current spear art of destruction, which was still considered crude. However, its power was already rather great. One could say that in terms of understanding and utilization of the laws of profound mysteries, Dongbua Shuang was one of the top among stage 2 world deities. Cultivating the first volume was naturally easy for him, but cultivating the second volume was extremely strenuous. The luminous sun is based on the world deity heart. I have already grasped hold of the world deity heart back in the Xia people's world. Profound mysteries of the world is what I specialize in, but cultivating it is still strenuous. Dongbua Shuang thought to himself, its control over the laws of profound mysteries is simply unimaginable. It is much more profound than world deity ranked secret techniques. No wonder this absolute art is able to transcend realms. Transcending realms was extremely difficult. A stage 2 world deity could sweep away a stage 1 world deity. A stage 3 world deity could sweep away a stage 2 world deity. For example, if not for that prisoner being sealed and suppressed, he would have been able to destroy Dongbua Shuang in a few moves. A stage 4 world deity could similarly sweep away a stage 3 world deity. On the contrary, the difference in power between a powerful existence and a stage 4 world deity was not that great. This was because a stage 4 world deity could practically grasp the complete laws of the world and was just a step away from becoming a powerful existence. Thus, there were more stage 4 world deities who could fight against powerful existences. These 9 golden beads were called Golden Fiend crystals. They contained the sharpness of the Golden Fiend, which was required to cultivate the luminous sun. It was also one of the treasures that Bloodblade had bestowed upon Dongbua Shuang. However, the sharpness of the Golden Fiend within these 9 beads was only sufficient for him to cultivate the second volume to perfection. When Dongbua Shuang became a stage 3 world deity in the future, he would have to search for treasures by himself. That's right, there was an obvious difference between an absolute art and a world deity ranked secret technique, which was that the former required external help to cultivate. After cultivating for an entire night, Dongbua Shuang opened his eyes and kept the 9 beads with a wave of his hand. The luminous sun absolute art is truly difficult. Even after cultivating for an entire night, I am still unable to cultivate it to the third transition. After Dongbua Shuang stood up, countless white rays flew out from the surface of his body. The white rays crisscrossed and flew in a zigzag manner. The rays were extremely sharp. These white rays were the luminous sun force cultivated from cultivating the luminous sun. Back then, the chain technique and Herculean technique were merely a part of the luminous sun absolute art. After learning the absolute art, the 2 secret techniques were naturally useless. Chi, the white luminous sun force crisscrossed and was extremely sharp. Even a stage 3 world deity would feel threatened. With the luminous sun force circulating within his body, Dongbua Shuang punched out fiercely. Hong long long. The space was bombarded layer by layer. It crushed everything in its path, causing the dark space to tremble. The power of the punch was even stronger than that of the prisoner, the great demon god. Of course, because the great demon god's true deity heart and world deity power were sealed, he was naturally much weaker just by relying on his physical strength alone. But the power of a single punch from Dongbua Shui Ying was already so strong. It was obvious that it was comparable to a stage 3 world deity. If I can master the third revolution, I will be able to dominate the stage 3 world deities. Dongbua Shui Ying thought. This was the power of an absolute art. It was normal to be able to fight against those of a higher realm. Dongbua brat, stop showing off. Once you're done, hurry over and meet your master. An ear-piercing voice rang out. Dongbua Shui Ying immediately knew that it was the voice of the blackbird that followed his master. Yes, Dongbua Shui Ying felt slightly awkward. It seemed like the blackbird had clearly seen him practicing his move, following which he quickly passed through the ripples of the formation and passed through the mountains, returning to Crimson Stone Courtyard with a smile. Crimson Stone Courtyard, a quiet garden. Bloodblade was standing with his hands behind his back. This was the place where he usually met his disciples. Dongbua Shui Ying walked into the garden and bowed, Master. Only then did Bloodblade turn around. After a night of practice, how is it? Bloodblade's lips curled upwards. The first 2 revolutions of the second volume were quite easy. However, after a night of tormenting the third volume, I feel that I am still lacking a little. Dongbua Shui Ying said respectfully. He originally thought that he had accumulated a lot after spending 100,000 years creating the secret skill. Who would have thought that he would not even be able to master the third revolution? According to the information from Luminous Sunday, under normal circumstances, the first revolution was easy, while the second was harder. However, as long as one's comprehension was not bad, they would be able to master it after spending some time. Those with high comprehension could master it in a short period of time. The third revolution was extremely difficult. Only those with high comprehension could master it. Fourth revolution, it was almost impossible to master it. There were only 2 possibilities for one to master it. One's comprehension was truly monstrous. The other was to increase one's realm. For example, a stage 1 world deity could not master the 4th revolution of the first volume. However, if they became a stage 2 world deity, they would naturally be able to master the 4th revolution of the first volume. Despite Dongbua Shui Ying's accumulations in comprehension, he was still unable to master the 3rd revolution of the second volume. Your comprehension is quite high. Since you were able to kill that demonic god, you should be able to master the 3rd revolution after spending some time. Bloodblade nodded. Since you have obtained the Luminous Sun Absolute Art, it is time for you to leave and establish your own sect. Chapter 500. Bloodblade's eyes suddenly shot out 2 illusory streaks of light that entered Dongbua Shui Ying's eyes. A large amount of information was transmitted. The extremity deity heart lies in the origin, the beginning, the end, and the one. This time, the transmission was mainly about the extremity deity heart and the space-time deity heart, as well as some reminders about becoming a powerful existence. Even though the amount of information was huge, Dongbua Shui Ying was now a stage 2 world deity, and his true deity heart was much stronger than before. He only paused for 1 or 2 seconds before regaining his clarity of mind. Thank you, teacher. Dongbua Shui Ying knelt down to express his gratitude. Imparting an absolute art and the comprehension of the laws of the world to him was truly a huge favor. After you graduate and establish your own sect, I won't be able to guide you often. You'll have to rely on yourself for everything, Bloodblade said indifferently. The Bloodshed God Emperor said indifferently, the path of cultivation ultimately depends on you. To you, becoming a stage 4 world deity isn't a difficult matter. What's difficult is taking that final step and transcending the river of time. Thus, you must remember not to absorb faith. This disciple understands, Dongbua Shui Ying replied. Absorbing faith was a form of assistance, but it was also a form of karma. Karma entangled one, and it would be extremely difficult to break free from its shackles and transcend. There were stage 4 world deities with strength comparable to powerful existences, but the majority were unable to break free from the shackles of karma. Your homeland, the Xia people's world, should correspond to the eastern region of the Kamsi prefecture, right? Bloodblade said. Yes, Dongbua Shuiying respectfully replied. The Kamsi prefecture was one of the 19 prefectures of the Bloodshed God Palace and was incomparably huge. As such, the Kamsi prefecture was divided into 5 major regions: north, south, east, west, and central. Regardless of whether it was the deity world, the dark abyss, or the material world, one had to rely on the moon and the sun to determine one's direction. The sun was the most easterly, while the moon was the most westerly. In that case, I'll appoint you as the supervisor of the eastern region of the Kamsi prefecture, with a rank of 3rd rank, Bloodblade said. Bloodblade said, you have the right to recruit a personal guard, with a tentative limit of 4,000 people. They will be a second-class army. The warships, armor, and quartermaster will go with you. You will have full authority to recruit your personal guards. Yes, Dongbua Shuiying sighed inwardly. His master was truly magnanimous. He really didn't care about the rumors and slanders. What did the 3rd rank represent? In the entire Kamsi prefecture, only the Kamsi prefecture master had a higher rank than him. Under normal circumstances, only stage 4 world deities could obtain the 3rd rank. Clearly, as the personal disciple of God Emperor, his rank had been set very high by His Majesty. Go. You'll have to face everything on your own in the future. No matter what the consequences are, you'll have to bear the consequences yourself. Remember, don't destroy yourself, Bloodblade said. Yes, this disciple shall take his leave. Dongbua Shuiying kowtowed as he stood up and left. Bloodblade watched on silently. Although he was one of the strongest experts in the deity world and dark abyss, there was not much he could do when it came to guiding his disciples. He could guide them in their cultivation, impart their absolute arts, and bestow them with enough treasures. As for anything else, he truly had no other choice. He did not care about how much trouble Dongbua Shuiying would cause. He, Bloodblade, had nothing to fear. However, he was worried that Dongbua Shuiying would stop at stage 4. After all, over the years, he had only taught 2 disciples who had become powerful existences. Bloodblade, this Dongbua brat has his own path. He was able to become so powerful even without the guidance of a powerful master. With your guidance, he will definitely have a bright future ahead of him. The blackbird on Bloodblade's shoulder shouted. Bloodblade quickly calmed himself down. He was used to being calm. Over the years, many people had risen up and received attention. However, not many of them had survived the erosion of time. He could only hope that this talented Dongbua would be able to transcend. On the same day, the quartermaster came to pay his respects. The quartermaster was a stage 2 world deity called World Deity Chu Cheng. He was rather amiable, and he bowed respectfully. Your Highness, I have brought along the battleships, armors, and other military necessities. There are 5 battleships and 5,000 sets of armors. 5,000 sets? Dongbua Shuiying asked doubtfully. Isn't it a quota of 4,000 people? 4,000 people are part of my personal guard. There are also dozens of officers within the personal guard, the quartermaster said. There might be some losses in the future, so I prepared everything in advance. Dongbua Shuiying nodded. He then asked the question he was most concerned about. The personal guard is a 2nd-grade legion, and the soldiers of 2nd-grade legions should have undergone a secret technique transformation, right? This time, I will be personally recruiting soldiers from the Kamsi prefecture's eastern region. When the time comes, how will I transform their bodies? Your Highness, please be at ease. World Deity Chu Cheng smiled. Since I've been assigned as the quartermaster, I will naturally be able to arrange everything. I am well-versed in the secret technique transformation, and I have also brought along all the necessary resources, enough to transform the bodies of 5,000 soldiers. Furthermore, His Majesty has placed great importance on Your Highness, so Your Highness's personal guard will undergo the transformation of the Azure Dragon Army's secret technique. After the transformation, any soldier's body will reach the limits of the deity realm, and after donning the special armor, they will be able to display the strength of a threshold world deity. And this is just the strength of a single soldier. If the Legion were to move, their strength would be linked together, and their strength would be even greater. Donghua Shui Ying's eyes lit up. According to what he knew, the soldiers of second-grade Legion would undergo the transformation of their bodies using a secret technique. Even after donning the special armor, their individual strength would still be at the limits of the deity realm. One must know that when he cultivated the third level of the time immemorial body, he had already reached the threshold of a world deity. Of course, this was also because the time immemorial body's main purpose was to preserve his life, not to attack. However, the transformation of the Azure Dragon army was clearly one of the more powerful ones. Very good. Donghua Shuiying nodded. However, there's one thing I must inform your highness. If it's just the transformation of the deity's body, any deity would be able to do it. World deity Chu Cheng said. However, if we were to engage in battle and activate the divine imprints on the armor, we would need to be at the late stage of the deity realm at the very least. Otherwise, if our realm is too low, we would not be able to comprehend the divine imprints and activate the armor. That would affect the entire battle formation. I understand. Donghua Shuiying sighed inwardly. Although the Xia people had received many precious treasures from him, and their strength had improved by quite a bit, only half of them had reached the late stage of the deity realm. But that was fine. In any case, he could transform the bodies of 5,000 soldiers, and the Xia people's deities would only amount to a little. A mere 2 days later, Donghua Shuiying brought Jing Xiao, the quartermaster world deity Chu Cheng, and the Xia people's deities on a luxurious dark green starfield flying ship, leaving the Bloodshed God Palace. A starfield flying ship cost at least 10 million deity crystals. However, Donghua Shuiying's starfield flying ship had been personally bestowed upon him by the God Emperor when he became a personal disciple. It was a rather precious treasure. Rumble, the starfield flying ship traveled through the space-time tunnel at an extremely fast speed. Donghua Shuiying stood at the bow of the ship in high spirits. Back when he had first left the world of the Xia people, he had been a minor character. Now, however, he was already the Calm Sea Prefecture's Eastern Region Patrol envoy, with 4,000 personal guards and an absolute art at his disposal. Very soon, a bright light appeared in front of him. That was the end of the space-time tunnel. Phew! After flying out, a starry sky appeared outside. At almost the same time, a figure appeared in the distant starry sky. It was the white-robed Donghua Shuiying. Of course, this was merely a world deity avatar. The white-robed Donghua Shuiying waved his hand, and several figures immediately appeared beside him. There was the rather handsome Donghua Yu, the rather domineering Donghua Qingyao, the thick-robed Senior Gobai, the scarlet-cloaked Senior He Feiyun, and finally the green-haired Qi Wei. Chapter 501. The thick-robed Senior Brother Gobai's eyes lit up as he saw a luxurious starfield flying ship flying out from the void in front of him. He laughed heartily and said, "This starfield flying ship looks extraordinary at first glance. It's probably worth over 100 million spirit crystals. Old 7, even if the two of us sold all our treasures, we still wouldn't be able to afford such a starfield flying ship." The scarlet cloak youth, He Feiyun, was as cold as ever. He curled his lips. Junior Brother Donghua is the personal disciple of His Majesty. He became a Stage 2 world deity in just 5,000 years. Don't be envious. Hua. The white-robed Donghua Shuiying turned and left. Shua. He disappeared and returned to the material world. Returning to the material world from the deity world was extremely simple. Of course, this was only for the lords of the material world. As long as he willed it, the Xia people's world would attract him and pull him over. Usually, he would be able to reach the Xia people's world in the blink of an eye. But this time, something unexpected had happened. This is... The white-robed Donghua Shuiying looked at the blurry spatial tunnel around him. At the same time, A vast power descended and enveloped his body. It's the material world's will. Dongbua Shui Ying immediately understood. Just like the Xia people's world, a mortal world, it had its own laws. It also had some instincts to reject outsiders and accept the natives. The countless mortal worlds formed the material world. Its laws were even stricter, but it also had some basic instincts. These instincts were the material world's will. The dark abyss also had its own will. To live in the material world, one had to follow the material world's will. 1. The material world's power began to seep into Crimson Rock Mountain. Release the seal on Crimson Rock Mountain. The might of the material world transmitted its will over. Shui Ying immediately understood that if he did not abide by the laws of the material world would most likely expel him, the Lord. He obediently released the seal, allowing the material world's power to seep into Crimson Rock Mountain. But soon after two figures were instantly thrown out of Crimson Rock Mountain, expelled from the material world. Other than the material world's lords, world deities are forbidden from entering the material world, following which the material world's power rapidly retreated. In the starry sky of the God world, Dongbua Yu, Dongbua, Qingyao, Shiwei, Gobai, and He Feiyun were all here. Suddenly, two more figures appeared. They were He Feiyun and Gobai, who were in a sorry state. The Starfield flying ship had already stopped. Junior brother Dongbo, why did you throw us out? What's going on? I was still cultivating in seclusion when I was thrown out. The two He Feiyun and the two Gobais watched as Dongbua Shui Ying and Jing Xiu flew down from the Starfield flying ship. Both of them had cultivated cloning techniques. Father, mother, Dongbua Yu, Dongbua Qingyao shouted. Dongbua Shui Ying smiled and nodded. Then he turned to Gobai and He Feiyun and said helplessly, Senior brothers, it was not me who threw you out. It was the rules of the material world that threw you out. According to the rules of the material world, the Eden treasures carried by the lords of a material world were prohibited from bringing world deities into the material world. I just found out. The thick-robed youth Gobai was somewhat dumbfounded. And here I thought that it would be absolutely safe to leave an avatar inside. Back when Master Crimson Dust threw Crimson Rock Mountain out, Crimson Rock Mountain didn't have an owner to bring it in. Dongbua Shui Ying said, the power of the material world is unable to forcefully enter Crimson Rock Mountain, which is why you two were able to stay inside. Now that I've refined Crimson Rock Mountain, when I brought it into the material realms will descended and inspected Crimson Rock Mountain. I'm guessing that anyone who brings an abode treasure into the material realm will be inspected. Then what should we do? Goodbye and He Feiyun exchanged glances. Crimson Rock Mountain can accelerate time, but the outside world doesn't have such good conditions. The thick-robed youth Goodbye sighed. Forget it. There's nothing we can do about it. We can't always stay inside Crimson Rock Mountain. Crimson Rock Mountain had its own Eden. It had precious cultivation rooms, time-accelerated facilities, and various experimental environments. Goodbye and He Feiyun had once cultivated inside. Both their true bodies and avatars had done their best to cultivate inside, hoping to become Stage 3 world deities. Senior apprentice brothers, what do you plan to do now? Dongbua Shui Ying laughed. Both of you have one true body and one avatar. Why don't you both follow me to Eastern Regent City? That's fine. He Feiyun nodded. Since both bodies have come out, one will return to my clan, while the other will follow you, Junior apprentice brother Dongbua. Goodbye rubbed his chin and teased. However, I'm afraid I'll have to rely on Junior apprentice brother's help in researching arrays. It's a small matter, Dongbua Shui Ying laughed. Let's hurry up and board the flying ship. We'll be heading to Eastern Regent City. He had a personal guard of 4,000, and the Bloodshed God Palace paid him an adequate salary every year. Thus, the cultivation needs of Goodbye and He Feiyun were not worth mentioning. The stars around it were nothing more than decorations, and the meandering river that flowed through the starry sky spanned 1 trillion kilometers and encircled the entire Eastern Regent City. In terms of scale, Eastern Region City was second only to the prefecture capital. It was comparable to the other three regional cities. Today, at the entrance of East Region City, there was a large number of soldiers standing in rows. At the front of the soldiers, there were universe gods. There was a total of 8 universe gods in the third heaven. As for Stage 2 world deities, there were more than 100. Today, almost all the superpowers in the eastern region of the Kamsi Prefecture have arrived. The leader was a middle-aged man in white robes. He smiled and said, "This supervisor envoy of ours has quite the reputation. I remember that only half of the people who came to welcome me when I took up my post. Ha ha ha, I don't mean anything by it. This supervisor envoy of ours, His Highness Dong Bo, is a personal disciple of His Majesty, and he's even a third-rank world deity. Within the Kamsi Prefecture, only the prefecture master is higher than him. Even I have to bow down to him. General Amo, there are only 8 Stage 3 world deities here. There's still one missing, a muscular man with a bull head said with a smile. Indeed, there's one missing. That one is quite arrogant to actually refuse to come. A bewitching woman holding a feather fan smiled. She and His Highness Dong Bo have a grudge against each other, and I thought that she would come to resolve it. Who would have thought that she really wouldn't come? Interesting, interesting. I wonder what little sister Venomous Ying's expression was like when she found out that His Highness Dong Bo was accepted as a personal disciple by His Majesty and became a Stage 2 world deity in just 5,000 years. These Stage 3 world deities were all chatting and laughing. That's right. Currently, all Stage 3 world deities of the Kamsi Prefecture, regardless of whether they were in seclusion or adventuring outside, had rushed over to welcome them. There was only one exception, the venomous Ying world deity. She had previously formed a grudge against Dongboi Shui Ying, and the various superpowers of the eastern region were all secretly wondering whether or not this venomous Ying world deity would come. Would His Highness Dong Bo give her any face? However, everyone guessed that the venomous Ying world deity would snatch away His Highness Dong Bo's wife to be ravaged by her nephew. Given His Highness Dong Bo's status, he would definitely not tolerate such humiliation. In the end, the venomous Ying world deity did not even come. His Highness has arrived. Immediately, the vast crowd of world deities turned to look into the distance. In the distant starry sky, a deep green ship flew out from a space-time tunnel, crushing the surrounding airflow as it rapidly arrived. Chapter 502. Today was the second night watch. Shui Ying and the others stood at the bow of the ship, looking at the majestic city in front of them. In front of the deity world soldiers, there was a large group of world deities who were even more extraordinary. The 8 leading them were all Stage 3 world deities. Sweeping his gaze across, Dongboi Shuang muttered, "She really didn't come. The venomous Ying world deity probably knows that she can't resolve this enmity." Jing Qiu smiled. At least she knows her limits. Dongboi Shui Ying's eyes flashed with coldness. Back then, the venomous Ying world deity had been incomparably tyrannical, forcefully snatching Jing Qiu away. In his rage, he had contacted Chihuahua Laozu to ask for help from a powerful existence. Fortunately, his big brother, the White Sand City Lord, had intervened, preventing the venomous Ying world deity from having her way. If not for his big brother, if not for him being a grade 1 true meaning transcendent, he would have only been able to watch as his wife was humiliated. In truth, while Dongboi Shui Ying was angry and wanted to kill General Ying, it was not as heavy as his hatred for the venomous Ying world deity. After all, General Ying was someone who was about to go crazy, and it was normal for a madman to do anything. But the venomous Ying world deity had not gone crazy. She had acted so tyrannically because he had been too weak back then. At that time, the venomous Ying world deity had sneered. "A little thing like you dares to act so arrogantly in front of me? So what if you're a realm lord? How far can you possibly cultivate in your entire life?" The venomous Ying world deity had not placed Dongboi Shui Ying in her eyes at all. That was normal. After all, how rare were Stage 4 world deities? There were only 1 or 2 of them in a single prefecture. The myriad flower feast only happened once every 10 million years, and the venomous Ying world deity did not believe that Dongbua Shui Ying could become a stage for world deity. But the heavenly Tao had its own cycle, and retribution came very quickly. Hua! The starfield flying ship slowly came to a stop. Dongbua Shui Ying, Jing Xiu, her husband and wife, as well as their children. Beside them were Goodbye, He Fei Yun, Shi Wei, the quartermaster world deity Chu Cheng, and a group of deities of the Xia people. With a thought from Dongbua Shui Ying, the starfield flying ship disappeared without a trace. From afar, a group of universe gods hurried forward to welcome them. Dongbua Shui Ying and the rest flew over as well. Greetings, Your Highness Dongbo, the white-robed middle-aged man in the lead smiled. General Mo Dongbua Shui Ying also spoke up. I've long heard of your reputation. I'm afraid that I'll have to trouble you with many matters in the Eastern Domain in the future. I hope that you won't find it troublesome, and I hope that you and I can work together. General Mo was inwardly shocked. The moment she opened her mouth, she said that she often troubled him. He even asked him not to find it troublesome. My goodness, it seems like this supervisor is really going to supervise. The responsibility of supervisor was extremely great. If he were to diligently supervise, the various powers of the Eastern Domain would have a headache, and they might even rebel in anger. It wasn't that great, but it wasn't that great either. If he were to turn a blind eye to it, it would be good for both sides. However, Dongbua Shui Ying immediately said that he would trouble the general the moment they met. This made General Mo feel that something was amiss. Still, who asked the other party to be the personal disciple of His Majesty? It's my duty, so I naturally have to cooperate. General Mo beamed. The various powers of my calm sea prefecture Eastern Domain have all arrived, and we've prepared a banquet to welcome Your Highness. Everyone's here? Dongbua Shui Ying swept his gaze across the crowd. The venomous Ying world deity isn't here yet. The surrounding stage, 3 world deities were all laughing inwardly. They were all happy to watch the show. My master is currently in closed-door cultivation, and he has given strict orders that no one is to disturb him. As such, I'm afraid that my master doesn't know that Your Highness has become a supervisor envoy. I hope that Your Highness can forgive us. A tall and skinny man at the back said. Dongbua Shui Ying glanced at him. Oh, the venomous Ying world deity sure is busy. Everyone, let's enter the city. Let's go, let's enter the city, General Mo said. The majestic group of world deities escorted Dongbua Shui Ying and the others into the city. In the distant void outside the Eastern Region city, 2 figures were currently standing side by side. They were a yellow-robed woman and a silver-robed man. The silver-robed man's face was covered with a unique pattern. He specifically called out my name when he welcomed me outside the city. The yellow-robed woman, the venomous Ying world deity, sneered. This Dongbua Shui Ying has come with ill intentions. Since he wants to fight with me, why would I be afraid of him? Big brother, you've been by His Majesty's side for many years, and your group of good friends are all people by His Majesty's side. If you use your connections, won't you be able to make the bloodshed god palace lean toward my side? Little sister, the silver-robed man beside her helplessly said, my group of old brothers is indeed very close to me, and even the officials in charge of the bloodshed god palace have to give me some face. It's fine if you were to fight with General Mo or someone else, but this time your opponent is His Highness Dongbua. General Mo and the others have been stationed in the Eastern region for a long time without being able to see His Majesty, so they naturally don't count for much. The silver-robed man shook his head. But His Highness Dongbua is different. He is His Majesty's personal disciple, so he can contact His Majesty and report directly to him. More importantly, he has great potential. He's already a Stage 2 world deity, and he'll most likely become a Stage 4 world deity within 1,000,000 years. Which of those officials would be willing to offend a Stage 4 world deity? The difference between a Stage 3 world deity and a Stage 4 world deity was like night and day. In the entire Calm Sea Prefecture, there were dozens of Stage 3 world deities, and there was only a single Stage four-world deity. Little sister, let's forget about it, the silver-robed man said. I'll first find some friends to ask around and think of a way to turn a big problem into a small one. The yellow-robed woman, the venomous Ying-world deity, gritted her teeth. Hesitating and conflicted, she said in a low voice, "Can it be resolved? Let's give it a try," the silver-robed man advised. "In my opinion, the chances of that happening are very low," the yellow-robed venomous Ying-world deity coldly said. "Humph, I'm still a fifth-rank world deity and a member of the Bloodshed God Palace. What can he do to me? Even if he becomes a stage 4 world deity, he still doesn't have the authority to kill me. If he really forces me into a corner, I have ways to protect myself." The Bloodshed God Palace had its own rules, and it was not a place where one could casually kill others just because they were strong. Dongbua Shui Ying is destined to soar into the sky. Yet you want to fight with him? The silver-robed man shook his head. "Forget it. Don't fight with him. I'll think of a way. Don't meet him for the time being. Big brother, you go and settle this." The yellow-robed, venomous Ying-world deity sneered. "I'll temporarily lower my head. If he doesn't give me face, humph, I have ways to deal with him. You." The silver-robed man shook his head. The silver-robed man was also thinking of a way. His temperament was relatively better, or else he would not have such a wide network. He was still leaning towards resolving the enmity. During the welcoming banquet, there were many guests, and the gifts were piled up like a mountain. Everyone knew that this supervisor envoy was different from the previous ones. He had a strong background and great potential, so the gifts he sent were not light. The banquet ended. Dongbua Shui Ying and the others returned to the supervisor envoy's residence. Within the hall, Dongbua Shui Ying, Chu Cheng, Senior Goodbye, He Fei Yun, and Shi Wei were all present. "Chu Cheng, make the arrangements. From tomorrow onwards, we'll announce the recruitment of personal guards," Dongbua Shui Ying ordered. "The weakest is a peak deity, and there's no limit to the number of world deities. Even if they exceeded the limit, they could still be recruited as guests. It must be known that not every world deity was willing to become a member of an army. Some of them would rather seek a good backer. Dongbua Shui Ying was clearly a good backer, and in the near future, he would most likely become a stage 4 world deity." "Yes, world deity," Chu Cheng respectfully replied. "Amen," Dongbua Shui Ying nodded. "Hurry up and make the arrangements." World deity Chu Cheng immediately retreated. Dongbua Shui Ying looked at Shi Wei by his side and smiled. "Shi Wei, there's something I'll have to trouble you with." "Your Highness, please speak." Shi Wei was currently following Dongbua Shui Ying. Chapter 503. Help me buy golden fiend crystals and demon bone ash. Dongbua Shui Ying said, "For the time being, I need 38 golden fiend crystals. The 100 million spirit crystals I gave you should be enough. As for demon bone ash, you can go look for it first. If I get any news, I'll personally go and talk to him." "Yes," Shi Wei said with a smile. When she followed Holy Master Crimson Dust, she had to stay in Crimson Rock Mountain for a long time. She was truly stifled. Back when they were at Crimson Rock Mountain, Shi Wei's main body had already given her 100 million divinity crystals. Dongbua Shui Ying nodded. The golden fiend crystals and demon bone ash were rare treasures that he needed to cultivate the luminous sun. His teacher had only given him the treasures needed to cultivate the first 2 chapters, and he needed to prepare the 3rd to 6th chapters by himself. As for the 3rd chapter, he needed 38 golden fiend crystals and 4 kilograms of demon bone ash. Although the golden fiend crystal was precious, it could not be compared to demon bone ash. Half a kilogram of demon bone ash was worth more than 50 million divinity crystals. Of course, as the Lord of Crimson Rock Mountain, he could afford it. But the main reason was that it was too rare. 100 million divinity crystals right off the bat. TSK, TSK, TSK. The thick-robed youth goodbye grinned. "I've lived for so many years, but I've never seen 100 million divinity crystals before." Dongbua Shui Ying smiled and said, "Senior brother goodbye, why don't I give you 100 million god crystals, and you'll be in charge of purchasing them. No, no, no. I still have to study the formation. Goodbye shook his head. You don't want to do it. Yet you're complaining. Fei-yun curled her lips. You're willing to go shopping? Goodbye teased. Fei-yun snorted. The two senior martial brothers were very close friends, so it was normal for them to undermine each other. Seeing this, Dongbua Shuang asked, Senior Martial Brother Goodbye, Senior Martial Brother Fei-yun, I'm afraid that the people I'm recruiting for my personal guards will be mixed with the honest folks. As for those universe gods who have come to seek shelter, I will need the two of you to keep an eye on them and investigate them. Leave it to us, Goodbye smiled. How many world deities would come to seek shelter? This matter was very simple. Are the two senior brothers willing to become the personal guard commanders? Dongbua Shuang asked. Second senior brother wants to meditate on the formation. I don't like to be tied down, the scarlet-cloaked youth, Fei-yun said. The two of us can be idle guests. Goodbye also nodded. Sure. Dongbua Shuang did not insist. The residence of a supervisor envoy was huge. Every soldier had to be equipped with a cave dwelling. The cave dwellings of the world deities were even bigger. In the mansion, there was a vast lake. Dongbua Shuang was standing beside the railing, looking down at the vast lake below. There were some strange beasts swimming in the lake. Father, it's very lively outside. Aren't you going to take a look? A figure flew over from afar. In an instant, it arced through the air and landed beside the railing. It was the handsome blue-robed Dongbua Yu. Dongbua Yu had inherited the advantages of Dongbua, Shuang, and Jingxiu. In terms of appearance, he was even better than Dongbua Shuang. It's very lively? Dongbua Shuang asked with a smile. They're all here to seek shelter. They want to become the personal guard. Dongbua Yu's eyes lit up. He exclaimed, The personal guard is a second-grade legion. The lowest-ranked soldier is at the 10th rank, and the treatment they receive is comparable to the commanders of ordinary third-grade legions. Dongbua Shuang nodded. In terms of rank, the highest-ranked commander of a third-grade legion, the general of a legion, would usually be at the 10th or 9th rank. However, the general had more authority. In a second-grade legion, the lowest-ranked soldier would be at the 10th rank. From this, one could see how big the difference in rank was. The main reason was that the difference in strength was also huge. A 1,000-man squad of a third-grade legion could deal with a Stage 1 world deity, but a 1,000-man squad of a second-grade legion could deal with a Stage 3 world deity. The difference in strength naturally determined their status. Are there any world deities coming? Dongbua Shuang asked. There are already more than 10 Stage 1 world deities, and even a Stage 2 world deity has come to seek shelter, Dongbua Yu replied. Dongbua Shuang was somewhat surprised. Today was the first day of recruitment, and the news had yet to spread, but there were already Stage 2 world deities coming to seek shelter. The results were better than he had expected. South, a figure flew over from afar. It was a gray-robed world deity. He bowed respectfully. Reporting to your highness, General Mo and world deity Ying have come to visit. This gray-robed man was one of the original subordinates of the supervisor envoy. One must know that the personal guard was considered a private army. Regardless of what position Dongbua Shuang held, the personal guard would always follow him. As for the supervisor envoy's mansion, the supervisory army was stationed here. The supervisory army was relatively small, with only 1,000 people. However, it was still a second-grade army. It was more than sufficient to be in charge of the supervisory army. World deity Ying? Which world deity Ying? Dongbua Shuang asked. It's the elder brother of the venomous Ying world deity, His Majesty's personal guard, world deity Ying Liang, the gray-robed world deity replied. Dongbua Shuang smiled. Have them wait in the side hall. I'll be right there. Yes. The gray-robed man respectfully left. Father, the elder brother of the venomous Ying world deity has come. Are they here to apologize? Dongbua Shuang's jade eyes lit up. We can't let them off just like that. They didn't give you any way out back then. Now that they know to apologize, it's too late. Dongbua Shuang waved his hand. Don't get involved. Go to your own things. You haven't even reached the peak of the deity realm. If I were you, I would have long since gone into closed-door cultivation. Dongbua Shuang chuckled. Father, do you think anyone can be like you, becoming a stage 2 world deity within 5,000 years? Becoming a stage 1 world deity within 10,000 years would allow one to become a personal disciple of a powerful existence. I feel that I'm almost at the peak of the deity realm. I'll work hard now and become a world deity within 1,000,000 years. Go, work hard. Dongbua Shuang shook his head. His son and daughter were carefree and carefree. His son was carefree and carefree. His daughter's initiative was even stronger. Still, Dongbua Shuang did not force them. He would just let nature take its course. Within the guest hall, as Dongbua Shuang stepped into the hall, the two people seated behind the table stood up. They were General Mo and the silver-robed world deity Ying. This world deity, Ying, had a strange pattern on his face. With a slight smile, one could tell that he was an easy person to talk to. He gave off a completely different feeling from his sister, the venomous Ying world deity. The venomous Ying world deity was much more vicious. Greetings, Your Highness. World deity Ying Liang bowed. Your Highness, this is world deity Ying. He knows about the matter between you and the venomous Ying world deity. It wasn't appropriate for him to attend yesterday's banquet, so he came early this morning, General Mo said. He still had to give face to world deity Ying Liang. In truth, the reason why the venomous Ying world deity was able to do so well was because of her elder brother, world deity Ying Liang. I've heard of you back in Crimson Stone Courtyard. Dongbua Shuang smiled. Please take a seat. He then walked to the table and sat down. Ying Liang also sat down and said, I've come here to apologize to Your Highness. That sister of mine is too vicious and insolent. I've also asked about the matter that day. My son was indeed excessive, but his true deity heart was on the verge of collapsing, and he went mad. Now his true deity heart has collapsed, and he has died. There's no point in blaming him. If you want to blame someone, blame me, blame my sister for not being able to control my son properly. When he started going mad, I should have never allowed him to go out again. Dongbua Shuang listened. This Ying Liang seemed to be quite reasonable. Indeed, General Ying had already reached such a stage, yet the venomous Ying world deity had still allowed him to go out. Wasn't that the same as disregarding the lives of others? If he were to casually kill someone, who would those who died unjustly complain to? Back when he was being forced, the venomous Ying world deity had acted in an even more tyrannical manner. She was bullying Dongbua Shuang for being weak. Chapter 504. Today was the second night watch. In this matter, my sister has made a grave mistake. It is all our fault, Ying Liang said. Even if you really wanted to deal with her, I would feel that it was only natural. But I'm still her elder brother, and I cannot just watch as everything unfolded. Furthermore, Brother White Sand acted in time and did not cause any terrible consequences. Thus, I hope to have some leeway. As Shuang listened, he frowned and coldly said, Nothing too terrible? If not for my elder brother, the White Sand City Lord, we would have fought to the death. Ying Liang was startled. Right. Thank you, Brother White Sand. This time, I have come with sincerity to make amends and resolve this grudge. If Your Highness has any conditions, please state them. You want me to state my conditions? Dongbua Shuang said coldly. Fine. Don't say that I did not give venomous Ying a chance. Please speak, Your Highness. Ying Liang heaved a sigh of relief. As long as he could state his conditions, it would be easier to negotiate. I have two conditions, Dongbua Shuang said directly. First, give me 10 kilograms of demon bone ash. The moment he said this, Ying Liang's expression changed. General Mo even muttered inwardly. Good fellow, truly ruthless. 1 kilogram of demon bone ash was worth at least 50 million deity crystals. 10 kilograms would be 1 billion deity crystals. Neither General Mo nor Ying Liang could produce such a sum, Not to mention that demon bone ash was extremely difficult to purchase. 2. Make the venomous Ing-world deity kneel in front of my supervisor envoy residence for 10,000 years, Shuang said. If you can do this, then this enmity will be settled. Don't say that I did not give you a chance. Now that I have given you a chance, it all depends on whether venomous Ing can do it. This, Ingu Liang smiled bitterly. This condition is as good as not saying anything. 10 kilograms of demon bone ash, let alone me and my sister, even stage 4 world deities would suffer greatly. As for making my sister kneel for 10,000 years, with her temper, even if you killed her, she would not. She has a temper. Dongbua Shuang sneered. Didn't you come to make amends? What was the point of having a temper when making amends? I can give you 10 kilograms of demon bone ash within 10,000 years, but your sister, the venomous Ing-world deity, must kneel outside my supervisor envoy residence within 3 days. If she doesn't kneel down in 3 days, then there's no need to talk. Send the guest off. Dongbua Shuang stood up immediately. The guards outside immediately came in and looked at General Mo and Inguliang. Inguliang and General Mo exchanged a glance. Can't the conditions be lower? Inguliang asked. Dongbua Shuang frowned. The 2 guards beside him immediately said, This way, please. Let's go, General Mo also said. Inguliang walked out helplessly. General Mo turned to Dongbua Shuang and transmitted a message to him. Your Highness, it is unlikely that the venomous Ing-world deity will agree to these conditions. 10 kilograms of demon bone ash is something they cannot afford, and I'm afraid they won't be able to buy it. I've already raised the conditions. It's up to them now, Dongbua Shuang said calmly. The nest of myriad devils. This was a huge mountain floating in the starry sky. Black fog roiled around the mountain, and countless venomous snakes coiled around it. This was a famous location within the Calm Sea Prefecture, the lair of the venomous Ing-world deity. The venomous Ing-world deity was extremely famous within the Calm Sea Prefecture. Other than her brother's support, she was also extremely proficient in hexing poisons. She could be said to be the strongest expert in the entire Calm Sea Prefecture. Dream on. Dream on. You want me to kneel in front of his residence for 10,000 years? Who does he think he is? I've cultivated for so many years to become a stage 3 world deity, but I don't want to kneel in front of him. Even if he kills me, I won't be able to do it. The venomous Ing-world deity's huge tail coiled around the huge palace hall. Her eyes were filled with rage. 10 kilograms of demon bone ash? What does he think demon bone ash is? Bones that can be found by the roadside? Not to mention 10 caddies of demon bone ash, even half a caddy of demon bone ash, was impossible. How is he raising conditions? He's humiliating me and you. Her voice reverberated within the hall, causing it to tremble. Not a single guard dared to be here. 10 kilograms of demon bone ash. Even if the 2 of us sold off all our treasures, we still wouldn't be able to afford it. Ingu Liang shook his head. His Highness Dongbo is really too much of a bully. He's not giving us any leeway at all. Even if he wants me to kneel for 10,000 years, I won't do it. The venomous Ing-world deity's eyes were filled with madness. Very well, since he's forcing me like this, then let's just watch and see who will be the victor. Little sister. Ingu Liang wanted to persuade her. Don't try to persuade me. It's pointless. The venomous Ing-world deity sneered. I do want to see just how powerful that Dongbua Shuang is. He's just a stage 2 world deity, yet he dares to be so arrogant? He'll most likely become a stage 4 world deity within 1,000,000 years. Ingu Yang sighed. But if he doesn't give me a path to walk, what can I do? The venomous Ing-world deity angrily retorted. She then sneered. He's not even a stage 4 world deity yet. He's not even a stage 3 world deity. The news spread like wildfire. It was unknown whether it came from the supervisor envoy residence or General Mo's Eastern Blaze Army. In any case, everyone knew that His Highness Dongbo had given the venomous Ing-world deity 10 kilograms of demon bone ash, and that she would kneel in front of the supervisor envoy residence for 10,000 years. Furthermore, she had to do so within 3 days. Time passed day by day. All the superpowers of the Calm Sea Prefecture Eastern region were paying close attention to this matter. Even the superpowers of the other regions were paying attention to it. After all, both Dongbua Shui Ying and the venomous Ying world deity were extremely famous in the Calm Sea Prefecture. 3 days have passed. The venomous Ying world deity has yet to appear. Let's see how His Highness Dong Bo plans to deal with the venomous Ying world deity. The way I see it, the fact that the venomous Ying world deity has lived for so long means that she's no fool. His Highness Dong Bo might have great potential, but his current combat power is only SOSO. I'm afraid that he really won't be able to deal with the venomous Ying. Let's wait and see. I believe that with His Highness Dong Bo's temperament, he'll make his move very soon. All the superpowers were paying close attention to the supervisor envoy residence. The supervisor envoy residence had always been recruiting, and his personal guards had long since been filled up. After all, while world deities were rare, there were countless peak deities. Even now, he was still recruiting Stage 1 and Stage 2 world deities. Time passed day by day. In the blink of an eye, a month had passed. However, there was still no movement from the supervisor envoy residence. Many of the superpowers who were paying close attention to the matter felt puzzled. Even the venomous Ying world deity, who had been waiting anxiously, was puzzled. This Dong Bo Shuang, it's been a month since he said those fierce words, yet there's still no movement from him? And here I thought he would have some tricks up his sleeves. Big brother, Dongbua Shui Ying took the initiative to come to the supervisor envoy residence's entrance to welcome him. At the entrance was a chubby man dressed in white robes. He was currently stroking his beard, and upon seeing Dongbua Shui Ying, his small eyes lit up. He laughed. Brother Dongbua, I've long known that Brother Donbua's future is boundless, but I never imagined that you would actually be accepted as a personal disciple by Master, a Stage 2 world deity who has lived for 5,000 years. TSK, TSK, TSK. Even I was shocked when I heard this news. Big brother, hurry up and come in. There's no need to report your arrival. Just send me a message, Dongbua Shui Ying hurriedly said. The White Sand City Lord walked in with a chuckle. His gaze swept across the surroundings. Soldiers could be seen everywhere in the supervisor envoy residence, and these green-armored soldiers all had powerful auras. As of now, you have 1,000 members of the supervisor army and 4,000 personal guards under you. These personal guards are a level stronger than the ordinary soldiers of the 2nd Grade Legion. 4,000 personal guards are comparable to 10,000 soldiers of an ordinary 2nd Grade Legion. Amazing, amazing. In the entire Calm Sea Prefecture, only the personal guards of the Prefecture Master are slightly stronger than you. It's all because of Master's kindness. Dongbua Shui Ying laughed. The two chatted as they walked. Dongbua, you previously said those words to force the venomous Ying world deity to lower her head. However, the venomous Ying world deity did not pay any attention to you. Right now, it's not just the eastern region of the Calm Sea Prefecture. The entire Calm Sea Prefecture is paying attention to this matter. The White Sand City Lord laughed. If there's anything you need my help with, feel free to say it. I've long since found that venomous Ying an eyesore. Chapter 505. Today was the 3rd night watch. Dongbua Shui Ying hurriedly said, No rush, no rush. Big brother, I've already decided on how to deal with venomous Ying. The reason why I'm not in a rush is because the time isn't ripe yet. Thousands of years have passed, so I'm still patient for a few months. Seeing this, the White Sand City Lord stroked his beard and chuckled. Since you've already planned it out, that's good. If you need me to act, just call me. Others might be afraid of offending that Nguliang, but I'm not. He's just a bodyguard. If he behaves obediently, then so be it. But if he dares to stir up trouble, I'll thicken my skin and complain to Master, Dongbua Shui Ying said. Ruthless. The White Sand City Lord immediately praised. There were only 2 reasons why Dongbua Shui Ying was feared by the major powers. The first was that he had immense potential, and the second was that he was His Majesty's personal disciple. Given how highly God Emperor regarded his personal disciple, if Dongbua Shuang really did complain, then it would be truly terrifying. Of course, Shuang only said it verbally. If he truly could not handle it himself and was helpless, he would only do so. Right, Dongbua? The White Sand City Lord chuckled. There's something I need to tell you first. Big brother, please speak, Dongbua Shuang said. You should know. I was foolish back then and was expelled from Master's tutelage. The White Sand City Lord said, I've been thinking about when I'll be able to return to Master's tutelage. This, Dongbua Shuang hesitated. Back then, his big brother, the White Sand City Lord, had secretly eaten Master's precious world sandheart fruit. In a fit of rage, Master had expelled him. It was too difficult to redeem such a thing. I'm not asking for your help right now, Dongbo. You've just become a disciple of my teacher not too long ago, so I'm afraid it's useless for you to say such words. The White Sand City Lord continued, I know that my teacher was quite angry at that time. It will be very difficult for me to return to Master's tutelage. However, I've lived for so long, and I estimate that more than half of my lifespan has passed. I only have one thing on my mind, and that is to return to Master's tutelage before my true deity heart collapses. Big brother, Dongbua Shuang hurriedly said, Don't worry. When I'm stronger, I'll find a good time to talk to Master about this. The White Sand City Lord grinned and said happily, Good, it's good to hear that. Two streaks of light suddenly flew over from afar. It was Goodbye and an unfamiliar dark-skinned man. The two of them had landed. Hurry up and greet His Highness, Goodbye immediately said. Bali Shang greets Your Highness. The dark-skinned man bowed respectfully. Dongbua Shuang took a look and noticed that Bali Shang had an extraordinary aura. He was a universe god in the second heaven. It seemed like they were here to seek refuge with him. Ever since the open recruitment, there were 3 stage 2 world deities who sought refuge with him, including this one. Brother Bai Li, where did you come from? Dongbua Shuang asked. The dark-skinned man immediately said, Reporting to Your Highness. I've been roaming the deity world, adventuring and tempering myself. However, I've been cultivating for over 2 billion years, and it's been hard for me to advance any further. I've grown tired of roaming the world for so long, and I've been looking for a safe place to meditate. That's why I've come to seek refuge with Your Highness. Dongbua Shuang nodded lightly. Amen. Senior brother Goodbye. Bring brother Bai Li Shang to a place to rest. Very soon, Goodbye and the dark-skinned man turned into 2 shadows and disappeared into the distance. TSK, I came to see you, and I've only met a stage 2 world deity seeking refuge with you. The White Sand City Lord sighed. Tell me, how many stage 2 world deities have you recruited so far? Not many, just 3, Dongbua Shuang said. That's still not many. How long have you been recruiting? The White Sand City Lord sighed. If you continue recruiting like this, it will be normal for you to exceed 10 after a while. I've lived for hundreds of millions of years, but I only have 8 stage 2 world deities under my command. Moreover, the majority of them have slowly cultivated and advanced from the weak subordinates under me. Someone with true strength like them still wants to seek refuge with me? Very few. They only came early because they saw that you're His Majesty's personal disciple and have an extraordinary future ahead of you. Sigh, I'm really envious. Dongbua Shuang laughed. Brother Bai Li, if there's anything you need, feel free to look for me. Goodbye laughed. You can stay in this cave for now. As for the commander of my personal guard, there's no need to rush. His Highness will definitely choose someone when the time comes. With your strength, even if you're not a commander, you'll at least be a vice commander. Many thanks, Brother Goodbye. Bali Shang laughed. Goodbye nodded. Then I won't disturb you any further. You can rest for now, and you can also take a stroll around. I've already instructed the maids to inform you where you can and can't go in this cave. With that, Goodbye left. Bali Shang turned around. After all, this was not a cave for guests, and he was also a stage 2 world deity. This cave covered an area of several thousand kilometers. After all, when world deities cultivated, the space was too small for them to practice. If there's nothing important, don't disturb me, Bali Shang ordered. He then quickly entered a quiet room at the back of his hall. Within the quiet room, Bali Shang surveyed his surroundings. With a wave of his hand, black world deity energy immediately flew out in all directions, quickly covering the entire quiet room and forming a complicated array that isolated all probing. He even took out a pendant from his storage ring and temporarily wore it in front of his chest. This pendant emitted ripples that permeated the surroundings, making it even harder to probe. Assassins and those with sufficiently high statuses would usually have treasures that could distort space-time and isolate probing. Who? Bali Shang heaved a sigh of relief. His eyes were filled with unconcealable excitement. With a flip of his hand, an ordinary wooden box appeared. He solemnly placed it in front of him before slowly opening it. Inside the wooden box was a black sphere with many uneven patterns on it. I got it. Bali Shang's eyes were filled with excitement. Monarch Song Yong spared no expense in order to obtain this treasure, sending us into the ruins one by one. Oof, oof, oof. But in the end, this treasure ended up in my hands. Bali Shang stretched out his hand and caressed the black sphere, pouring his world deity energy into it. Wong. The black sphere slowly lit up, and the uneven patterns on its surface began to emit light that illuminated the surrounding space. It was an extremely complicated and unfathomable diagram. Bali Shang looked at the diagram that had appeared in the air above the quiet room, completely intoxicated by it. After obtaining this treasure, he had seen it a few times while fleeing. Although he had only seen it briefly, it had greatly affected his comprehension of the laws of heaven and earth. That ruin is so vast that even stage 4 world deities can lose their lives at any time. For Monarch Song Yong to be so crazy about it, this treasure must be extraordinary. Bali Shang carefully pondered. He was originally a cannon fodder that Monarch Song Yong had forcefully captured. The monarch had also laid down an inescapable net around the ruins, so logically speaking, no one should have been able to escape. However, after obtaining the black sphere, the ruins collapsed, and the arrays laid down by Monarch Song Yong were directly destroyed. Bali Shang could not even fend for himself. At that time, space-time was in chaos, causing many world deity cannon fodder to flee in all directions. As for Bali Shang, he was the luckiest one to obtain the treasure. I fled without making a sound, even isolating myself from detection, from the periphery through the Temporal Islands territory, all the way to the bloodshed God Palace's territory. I'll secretly join Dong, Bo, Shuang. The corner of Bali Shang's mouth curled upwards. Dongbo Shuang was also able to protect me. Furthermore, Monarch Song Yong would most likely not be able to find me. Bali Shang then continued to carefully study the black sphere, searching for the secrets of this treasure. Chapter 506. In the blink of an eye, 3 months had passed since Dongbo Shuang became the supervisor envoy. It was not just the eastern region of the Kamsi Prefecture. Many other regions were also paying close attention to this matter. They wanted to see how His Highness Dongbo would deal with the venomous Ying world deity. But even after such a long time, Dongbo Shuang had not made a single move. This caused many powers to mutter inwardly. What's going on with this Dongbo Shuang? Could it be that he doesn't have enough strength to deal with venomous Ying? Unless he directly reports to His Majesty God Emperor, only then can he deal with venomous Ying. But if he were to rely on His Majesty for such a small matter, His Majesty would think that this Dongbo Shuang is too useless. There's nothing he can do. His future might be limitless, but his strength is still too weak. World deities had long lifespans. They were all extremely patient as they paid close attention to the matter. They felt that since Dongbo Shuang had already spoken so viciously, it was impossible for there to be no movement at all. This was simply too shameful. Regardless of success or failure, there had to be some sort of movement. in a quiet room within the supervisor envoy's residence. Dongbua Shui Ying was currently sitting cross-legged with 9 golden pearls placed in front of him. Strands of golden light were constantly flying into Dongbua Shui Ying's nostrils. Within his body, his world deity energy was fusing with these strands of golden light. After a mystical transformation, they began to transform into strands of white energy. This was the luminous sun force. This luminous sun force was purer, heavier, and sharper. The original luminous sun force was once again absorbing the golden light and transforming it. A short moment later, countless white clouds appeared in the sky above the continent within his inner world. Each white cloud was condensed from the luminous sun force. Hong Long Long, the luminous sun force circulated within his body. It had completely fused with his muscles, bones, internal organs, and even the most basic particles of his body. This caused Dongbua Shui Ying to feel a power that could destroy the heavens and exterminate the earth. After cultivating for 3 months, I've finally completed the 3rd transformation. Dongbua Shui Ying revealed a smile. It truly wasn't easy. It was more than 3 months. In truth, his main body had been maintaining 100 times time acceleration in his hometown, Crimson Rock Mountain, before he finally comprehended and broke through, cultivating the 2nd volume of Luminous Sun to rank 3. Next, the 4th transition will be difficult. Dongbua Shui Ying thought to himself, rank 4, even if my comprehension is not bad, I'm afraid it will take a long time. To be honest, even though it was difficult to cultivate ultimate skills, Dongbua Shui Ying was more than willing to spend his time on it. Other than increasing his strength, it would also allow Dongbua Shui Ying to have a deeper understanding of the laws of heaven and earth. It was also very helpful for cultivation. Now, it is time to deal with Venomous Ying. Dongbua Shui Ying stood up and waved his hand to put away the 9 golden demon crystals. I haven't done anything for a long time. Does she think that I can't do anything to her? Oomph. Rumble. The door to the quiet room opened. Dongbua Shui Ying walked out of the room. Commander Bai Li, Commander Jiu Qi, quickly gather the soldiers under you. After walking out of the quiet room, he stood by the railing and spoke in a clear voice, which spread throughout the entire supervisor envoy residence. At that moment, the entire supervisor envoy residence was in an uproar. A large number of soldiers quickly gathered. So. Several streams of light flew over and landed by Dongbua Shui Ying's side. They were precisely Jing Xiao, Dongbua Yu, Dongbua Qingyao, Gobai, He Fei Yun, Shi Wei, and the others. Dongbua, what are you planning to do by gathering your personal guard? The moment Jing Xiao spoke, Dongbua Yu became excited. Father, are we going to deal with that venomous Ying world deity? Amen. Dongbua Shui Ying smiled and nodded. Are you confident? Jing Xiao asked. Rest assured, Dongbua Shui Ying said confidently. Father, bring me over, Dongbua Qingyao said expectantly. Dongbua Yu also said, I'll go as well. Dongbua Shui Ying looked at his wife and said, all right, I'll bring you over. Jing Xiao, help me look after the 2 of them. Don't be rash. At that moment, 2 majestic troops flew over from a distance. All the soldiers were clad in azure armor. The captains were similarly armored, albeit with some black vein patterns. The commanders, on the other hand, were clad in azure armor with some more complicated golden vein patterns. A commander was the core of a troop's array. Greetings, Your Highness. Over 2,000 people landed and greeted respectfully, their voices shaking the world. At the same time, the other 2 commanders and world deities rushed over. Amen. Dongbua Shui Ying nodded and ordered, Commander Bai Li, Commander Jiu Qi, lead your troops and follow me. The others, stay in the residence and listen to Gobai and He Fei Yun's orders. Yes. All of them acknowledged in unison. Shi Wei, follow me as well. Dongbua Shui Ying instructed. He then loudly ordered, let's go. Boom! Shui Ying led his subordinates out of the supervisor envoy residence in a grandiose manner. They're out. That His Highness Dongbua is finally making a move. He's leading over 2,000 of his personal guards and has set off. Many scouts from various organizations, including those under the command of the venomous Ying world deity, had long been keeping watch in the surroundings. Upon seeing such a huge movement, they immediately reported it upwards. Dongbua Shui-Ying did not care at all. He directly led his personal guards to another place in Eastern Region City that occupied an extremely large area, the encampment of the Eastern Blaze Army. Outside the encampment of the Eastern Blaze Army, General Mo was already waiting at the entrance with some soldiers. Dongbua Shui-Ying landed with his personal guards and greeted, "General Mo, Your Highness, why have you come here?" General Mo smiled. "And you brought so many soldiers with you." "As a supervisor envoy, I've been in this position for so long, yet I've done nothing at all. I'm truly ashamed," Shui-Ying directly said. "I've come to General Mo's place to carry out my duties as a supervisor envoy. The supervisor is here." General Mo hurriedly said, "Your Highness Dongbua, please be at ease. I'll cooperate with everything. Let's talk inside." Dongbua Shui-Ying walked inside with General Mo accompanying him. Jing Xiu, Dongbua Yu, Dongbua Qin Yao, and a large number of soldiers follow behind them. "If Your Highness has any orders, please feel free to give them." General Mo's attitude was rather humble. There was nothing he could do about it. Although he was one of the 4 great generals of the Kamsi Prefecture, his personal strength was the weakest. He was not as tyrannical as General Wu, who was one of the strongest stage 3 world deities in the Kamsi Prefecture. He was also not like General Qin, who had a powerful backer. In front of Dongbua Shui-Ying, General Mo's attitude was naturally humble. "How many starfields does the nest of myriad devils control?" Dongbua Shui-Ying asked. General Mo thought to himself. The nest of myriad devils was the organization under the control of the venomous Ying world deity. His Highness Dongbua was really going to act against her. "The nest of myriad devils controls 32 starfields," General Mo said. "They're also in charge of collecting faith energy from these 32 starfields. Bring out all the records of the nest of myriad devils collection of faith energy from its inception until now," Dongbua Shui-Ying said the moment he sat down in the Great Hall. "Good. Hurry up and bring them out," General Mo ordered his subordinates. A short while later, dong dong dong, a world deity general walked in. With a wave of his hand, 3 chests appeared. With a wave of his hand, the chests were completely opened, revealing a pile of scrolls within. Dongbua Shui-Ying swept his gaze across them. His fiery red world deity energy enveloped them, seeping into every single scroll. How fast was the thought process of a world deity? In a split second, he had already checked through all the scrolls. Interesting. Dongbua Shui-Ying looked at General Mo. The nest of myriad devils doesn't seem to be collecting much faith energy. Chapter 507. Today was the 5th day. Bloodshed God Palace. To the countless stars in the entire territory, it would make the lives on those stars worship a certain powerful god. They would place a deity statue on a planet that could condense faith energy. They would then have the various lower-level organizations collect it and offer it. After all, they did not have enough manpower and could not control every single planet. On the other hand, the various world deity organizations would be able to penetrate the planet even more thoroughly. They were also responsible for collecting faith energy. This was an extremely tedious task. Many people who wanted faith dared to go to a star and steal the power of faith. In order to become a world deity, even late and peak deities dared to take such a risk. Thus, they had to have sufficient control over every single planet to ensure that the faith energy would not be stolen. Take the Xia people's world, for example. After Dongbua Shui-Ying grasped hold of the Mirage deity heart, he was able to isolate the transmission of faith energy from the Xia people's world. This made the world deity from the Temple of the Earth God so anxious that he sent his deity avatar down to obtain faith energy. Faith energy It was even more precious than deity crystals. Apart from people like Dongbua Shuang, whose goal was to become a powerful existence, he would not be willing to absorb faith energy. Almost all world deities would absorb faith energy. This would greatly increase their cultivation speed. If Dongbua Shuang were to use faith energy, he would have long reached the fourth boundary of the second volume of the luminous sun, or even become a stage 3 world deity. Faith energy would allow one's cultivation to undergo a qualitative transformation. The nest of myriad devils, 32 starfields, they only collected so little faith energy? Dongbua Shuang sneered. It's recorded in there, General Mo said. General Mo said hurriedly. Those 32 starfields are often visited by deities to steal faith energy. There are even large-scale wars that lead to a sharp decline in population. Ying sighed. The nest of myriad devils controls a place where all sorts of things often happen. It really isn't your average misfortune. General Mo, have you investigated them? Are their reports true? This, General Mo helplessly said. The entire Sea Prefecture Eastern region is vast and has countless stars. How could I investigate them one by one? Investigate every single one of them by reversing time? This was simply unrealistic. Don't worry, there are also records of which stars' power of faith was collected by who. There's a list of names for them. Dongbua Shuang sneered. His Majesty, God Emperor, was rather lax in his management of the various levels of the Bloodshed God Palace. However, the myriad devil nest's actions were extremely excessive. This was because most forces did not dare to go overboard. The nest of myriad devils relied on the fact that Yang was in the Bloodshed God Palace. General Mo also turned a blind eye to this, so the amount of faith power that he handed over was much lesser. All right, I'll take these with me, Dongbua Shuang said. Is that all right? Of course you can, General Mo replied. Let's go. Dongbua Shuang waved his hand and brought the wooden chest with him as he walked out of the Great Hall. Following which, a huge dark green ship appeared out of thin air. Dongbua Shuang and his subordinates boarded the ship. Swoosh! The Starfield flying ship quickly flew away and disappeared into the horizon. General Mo looked on from afar. General, does His Highness Dongbua plan to start with faith power? A bearded old man asked from the side. The venomous Ying world deity and Yang have been stuffing their pockets with faith stones over the years. They should be worth at least 800 million deity crystals. General Mo sneered. However, Yang still has to send some to the officials in charge of the Bloodshed God Palace. I reckon that the two siblings should have at least 500 million deity crystals in their hands. I can't fight against them, but His Highness Dongbua, His Highness Dongbua has His Majesty behind him. That's the greatest backing he has, General Mo said. This is going to be interesting. The Starfield flying ship traveled through the space-time tunnel toward the nest of myriad devils. The nest of myriad devils. It was an enormous mountain located amidst the vast starry sky. It was unknown how many millions of kilometers tall it was. Black fog roiled around it, and countless venomous snakes slithered about. Countless deities lived here, including a group of world deities and 5-stage 2 world deities. Many of them specialized in hexing poison. After all, the venomous Ying world deity was the most proficient in hexing poison in the entire Sea Prefecture. The nest of myriad devils was also home to the most venomous creatures, making it the most suitable place for researching hexing poison. Look, it's the Starfield flying ship. It's the Starfield flying ship. Hurry up and report to Master. The nest of myriad devils had a strict hierarchy. The venomous Ying world deity flew out from one of the great halls within the nest of myriad devils. Beside her was a short companion, and behind her was a group of stage 2 world deities and world deities. As for deities, there were countless of them. With a single glance, one could see that there were more than 100 million deities. The power of the nest of myriad devils was truly tyrannical. The venomous Ying world deity sneered as she looked into the distance. There was an enormous starfield flying ship tearing through the void as it flew over. There were many rows of green-armored soldiers standing on the ship, and every single one of them had a powerful aura. After all, they had all reached the threshold of the world deity realm. Even though there were only 2,000 soldiers on the ship, the aura they emitted was far above that of the 100 million deities. This was the difference between the army of the bloodshed god Palace and the scattered soldiers. The green-armored soldiers rapidly flew out and stood in the void. The starfield flying ship disappeared. Dongbua Shuiying flew to the front of the army. Beside him were Jing Xiu, Dongbua Yu, Dongbua Qingyao, and Shi Wei. May I ask why the supervisor envoy has come to my place? The venomous Ying world deity sneered. I'm currently at a crucial point in my cultivation. If the supervisor envoy has no important matters, then I won't be accompanying you. Venomous Ying. Dongbua Shuiying directly shouted. I've checked on the collection of faith energy and discovered that the amount of faith energy your nest of myriad devils has handed over is suspiciously low. Right now, I need all the members of your nest of myriad devils responsible for collecting faith energy from every planet. I want to interrogate them one by one. They're all dead, the venomous Ying world deity casually replied. All dead? Dongbua Shuiying frowned. 32 starfields, countless planets, and a total of 1 million deities responsible for collecting faith energy in the past 100 million years are all dead? Dead. The venomous Ying world deity sighed. When I was researching hexing poisons, a moment of carelessness caused the hexing poison to leak out, resulting in the deaths of countless deities. Supervisor, I can't do anything about it. How could they hand over the gatherers? Not a single one. Once he handed one over, he could verify it. He could even go back in time to check the situation of a star's past to verify the truth. Therefore, he couldn't hand over any of them. When Dongbua Shuiying saw this, he laughed coldly. There were a total of 1 million divinities in charge of harvesting, but all of them died. This is truly a miracle. You might believe it, but I don't. I'm afraid that the officials in charge of the Bloodshed God Palace won't believe it either. Even if you don't believe me, I can't do anything about it. This is the truth, the venomous Ying world deity said. If you don't believe me, you can search my nest of myriad devils for free. 1 million gods, all dead. What a coincidence. Dongbua Shuiying immediately shouted. Venomous Ying, your reasoning is too preposterous, so I can only escort you into the Bloodshed God Palace. Let the Bloodshed God Palace conduct the interrogation. Listen to my orders. Commander Bai Li, capture the venomous Ying world deity and escort her to the Bloodshed God Palace. None of the deities in the nest of myriad devils are to resist. Anyone who resists will be considered a traitor to the Bloodshed God Palace and will be executed. Yes. Commander Bai Li Shang acknowledged the order. The soldiers under him all had their eyes lit up and were filled with fighting spirit. This was their first battle after becoming his personal guard. That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.